换一首歌。Happy Saturday night, everyone! 10月19号非常重要的一天，因为今天我们的 BC 省选，所以今天做一个直播，跟大家来一起看一下这个未来4年会由谁来做主等一下我会直播新闻，大家可以看一下。那当然在这边大家也可以留个言，让我们知道你对这一次的选举什么样的看法。当然我不是 expert， 我不是政治方面的专家，纯粹只是上来跟大家分享一下这个开票的结果，我们也讨论一下。当然我也会给大家 update 一下，就是现在房地产市场的状况。好，看一下有没有人加入的朋友们可以想一下，因为今天真的是很 crazy 的一天哦，我相信大家应该都就算出去投票也是非常艰辛。大家可以看一下，就是今天是 crazy day， 昨天晚上倾盆大雨，导致今天基本上温哥华的路都非常的可怕，尤其是好像是本拿比或者是在西温北温那边，对，大家可以看到 Hello Alan 是我们的RBC 的贷款经理，对，今天本来要来的，结果他在Worcester 那边就从 Worcester 那边给我们支持。好，谢谢 Alan。OK， 我们看一下这个 crazy 的路。大家今天有没有在外面开车？有没有遇到这个情况？在 Richmond 这边，我知道帝国广场那边边的比较严重，但其他地方好像还好，这个都挺 crazy 的。看一下有没有其他的 clip。对，如果说这个就是在这个网络上面有人分享在列治文的帝国广场的那个照片。Oops。这个帝国广场的照片，对，淹到已经成了一个小水池了。对，如果大家家里像我有一个朋友，就是地下室也不慎的有水漏进去，所以基本上如果有地下室的朋友们，就是要 check 一下你那个 pump 很重要，就是 make sure 它的水会pump 出去。OK， 那我先给大家看一下。现在这个就是在这个 Gilmore Place，Gilmore Place 那边的一个情况对，有网友在留言问说这个地方是不是不要买完全没有这个意思只是说就是给大家如果有开到那边的话，我知道我有客人住在那，他们也都看到很多车子就stuck 在里面，所以如果开到那边的话就要小心。但那边之前呢，因为它盖很多大楼所以呢，确实很多如果有走过那边人行道的朋友们，应该都看到它的地基呢，确实好像有些地方都翘起来，然后也有很多一些法律纠纷在跟每一个 building， 所以如果你要在那边买房的话，就是确保说你买的那一个 building 是没有什么问题的，就要看清楚里面的资讯，这样子对。OK， 好，我现在给大家直接看一下现在我们的。大概会 update 一下 throughout the time， 我会跟大家说一下现在房市的情况Of course， 现在还没有开始 ，last 10分钟就开始了，大家可以留言看一下你是对这次的政党选举有什么样的想法。那很特别的是，这边给大家看一下，因为在我们这个地区呢，我有收到一个这个信。Take a look here。这是我收到这个NDP 寄来的 ，OK，so basically talk about John Rostock， 就是保守党。他说保守党会让你花更多的费用，因为他们会将 MSP 加回来，然后会有更高的 ICBC 的 rate， 然后他们会将 healthcare 那边减少4.1，因为我们这边区我知道是保守党好像是目前是领先的，所以 NDP 我不知道他是不是每一个区都会发这些信件，但我只收到就是 NDP 寄来的信，我没有收到保守党那边的。OK， 所以他基本上会说他会取消 speculation tax， 就是所谓的投机税，然后会让我们更 less safe。OK， 这是我收到一封信。OK， 至于大家今天晚上的结果怎么样，很快就会出来了哈。所以我觉得这都是一些 propaganda， 就是要改变大家的想法。但说真的，这边是他们另外一个信的另外一面，给大家看一下，这个是这个信。Right， 他说他们会有1000块的辅助，然后会有更多的 family doctor 给每一个人。2025年12月，那为什么现在没有 family doctor？ 现在基本上我所有的客人都找不到家庭医生。OK， 就连我爸妈也都找家庭医生都很不容易。然后现在又开支票说2025年12月我会保证你每一个人都会有这个家庭医生。你为什么之前不做呢？你有怎么样的策略？完全都没有。30万个 middle class home 会建造出来，然后会做更多的保险那边会 lock in， 对，所以大家都在开支票，也没有任何的一个确切的一个。现在我们 go back to 那个投票的情况。Go take a look.
The BC Civil Liberties Association.
Okay, 9分
In
51秒。
2013, he knocked then Premier Christy Clark from her seat in Vancouver Point Grey, cementing his reputation for challenging the
对，所以
establishment.
David Eby 在
Now he is the political
他说
establishment, fighting to extend the NDP's
2016年的
mandate
时
by
候
4
把
more
Christy
years.
Clark 就是前任的那
Eby
个
says he
Liberal
learned
的
long ago that
那个
ideals
leader
might drive you,
在
but
Point Grey 选
reality
区把
grounds
他
you.
给让他没有选上，对，那时候也就是缔造了他一个名声，因为那时候 Christy Clark 是 Liberal 的一个领导，对，所以这代表说他已经将他的地位巩固住。那不管今天，我觉得就是怎么样，就大家都心平气和，明天还是得继续过下去，所以我觉得就看一下，就是如果说今天NDP 继续选上的话 ，OK， 那就希望他们可以将 BC 省带领到一个更好的地方。我相信这是一个非常接近的一个选战 ，very close。所有的这个poll 都显示双方的那个支持的比例都非常接近。那如果真的是conservative 保守党可以选上的话呢，基本上保守党是没有在 BC 省执政过的 ，OK， 所以这是他的第一次有这么大的一个进步哦。主要是因为他的 leader 之前其实就是在 Liberal 那边转过来的，带了很多人过来，所以今天才会有突然这么大的 shift。对，大家有没有留个言讨论一下有没有什么问题？对，你们觉得今天晚上你们会支持哪一个政党？也欢迎在下面留言一下。但大家都是 BC 省居民，或是你们在海外的朋友，也可以参与一下讨论一下，你们觉得这次 BC 大选对接下来的会是怎么样的情况？那这边要跟大家来说一下，就是可能会影响到比较多的这个海外朋友，或者说比较常在飞来飞去的朋友，就是这一个 NDP 的政见。其实在上周的时候呢，还有宣布说这个政见。基本上我们都知道呢，在2018年的时候这个 NDP 就已经提出来了这个 speculation 跟 vacancy tax， 就是所谓的投机空房税。那这个税呢，主要是它是说有 99% 人是不需要付的，只有1% 要付。那为了这个东西，它搞了一个这么大一个改变，你每年都要报这个税，然后只有要 penalize 那1% 的人。然后你基本上他是说，如果他们这一次再重新选上的话，他会将这个税 double。 所以现在的话，如果你是一个 BC 省的居民，但是你可能是一个 satellite family， 你可能是卫星家庭，你可能譬如说先生是在海外上班，太太在这边带孩子，那你就必须要付这个 speculation tax， 因为你的收入没有在这边申报，所以它是 0.5%。那如果你现在是海外人士，你没有 BC 省的没有加拿大的身份的话呢，你现在是要付1.5%。的这个罚金，如果你没有出租这个房子的话，那现在他计划说，如果他选上的话，他会 double， 就会由现在的 0.5% 改到1%，然后如果是海外的，由 1.5% 变到3%，所以其实蛮重的。如果你现在已经有在付这个的话呢，你应该不会想选 NTP， 因为这个对你来讲就是直接就是要你以后的这个头期空置税要加倍的去付它这个费用。我们这边再继续看。大家你听得到这个讲话吗？如果可以的话，你可以帮我回答一下 yes。最后3分51秒就要开始开票。
Gloria, thank you so much. And Mosa Hoda, Rachel Siegel, and Pete Fry with us as our insiders panel. Talking a moment ago, or just coming off what Catherine
Very
just said,
exciting.
we were talking earlier about whether the BC Conservatives were capitalizing on perhaps some confusion between the BC Conservatives and the popularity of the federal Conservatives. As I said earlier, conservatism kind of riding high in Canada right now. What do you think about that, Rachel? Do you think they benefited?
I think there's certainly a benefit, but I think the correlation between John Rustad here and Pierre Poilievre in Ottawa is that they're both putting out this message of change. And so that is what really seems to be resonating with people federally and also here in British Columbia. And so I think that message and this feeling that we need to do things differently, that people are struggling, they want answers as to why, that's the commonality between those two levels of government.
So Mo, do you think it's just a coincidence then that we hear things like common sense and axe the tax and exactly the same words coming out of John Rustad's mouth that we hear?
No,
it's not. 最后2分30秒倒数计时。
And the Conservatives federally are taking it from Donald Trump, and they use the same language to try to appeal to a subset of the vote base, and that's a clear part of their strategy. The Conservatives in British Columbia would not have had any momentum if it wasn't for the Conservatives federally.
Pete, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, of course, you can't reflect on any of this without looking at how the BC Liberals disastrously tried to change their name to distance themselves from that conservative.
好，那还有2分钟呢，我这边先来跟大家就更新一下现在房市的情况，然后接下来我们就可以专心的看一下开票。OK， 这边我们看一下，现在已经利息已经降了3次了10月份呢，其实发现呢房市已经开始回温了。在这一个报告里面呢，我们可以给大家看一下，稍等一下，我 pull out 这个。OK， 这边是10月 up to year to date month to date 到现在的情况，我们看一下，在最上面就是销售，所以我们从4月份开始2821套是今年来的最高的销售，一直到9月都是呈现下降，每一个月比一个月低只要它一降息，然后房市就更疲缓。但是呢，在10月发现呢，这一个downward trend 终于要改变了。我们看到10月份month to date 今天已经来到1718套，跟上个月的1820套、30套已经非常接近，所以一定会超过。所以我们在10月份看到房市有一个反弹，其实现在也感觉到修也开始变多了，很多买家呢也开始出动了主要就因为这个月的通膨指数我们已经降到2以下。那我看完以后呢，其实主要就是油价有下降。但我问大家，好像大家也没觉得油价有便宜，但油价下降以后呢，让通膨变低，但其实像我们生活用品、买菜那些呢，反而其实上升了。所以overall 来讲是没有降低，但是我觉得在这个数字上来讲的话呢，现在预估下周央行会再降 0.5% 的利息。这是我看到这边 Ellen 也有说 ，Ellen 真的是非常非常感动，在 Worcester 还有玩还提供这么好的资讯，对，所以基本上他是说76% 会减 0.5%， 然后固定利率因为邦一有债券收益最近还涨了14%，加拿大固定对 另外一个就是加拿大确实在邦益友这边呢，其实大家觉得，如果说今天央行降息，那我的固定利率或者说我下去买房，我固定利率是不是会降？其实是没有太大的关系，因为固定利率其实是跟公债的长期公债指数在看的，所以我们现在这边看到，其实在公债指数这边呢是有一些上升的，所以反而还没有跌，所以现在来讲的话，固定利率反而不会有太大的变化，而是浮动。但是我有听说过，虽然说央行它降他们的利息，但有些银行好像反而没有跟进，所以 Alan 如果有在看，也可以跟我们澄清一下，到底银行是不是也可以决定他们的 prime rate 是不是跟这个BC 那个加拿大银行的那个 rate 会去做变动。然后我们回到再看一下这边这个报告，在这边我们可以看到我们的整体的库存月份也下降了，从上个月的14450来到现在的13871，所以总共也下降了700个单位。所以现在库存下降之余呢，我们看到库存月份也下降了，独立房的来到了6.8，然后公寓跟 townhouse 都下降到4.3跟4.1，所以相对的话，整体而言，我发现呢，很多卖家，第一个他们就是把房子收起来不卖了，可能因为已经到了10月底，要不然呢就是他可能就是相对的话上盘数量不是很多，所以我们在下周的下个月初的报告可以看得出来，但确实现在整体来讲，销售上升。库存降低，所以现在对一些卖家来说是一个比较好的卖房的时期，因为相对的话库存有，而且我们基本上知道到了年底这段时间，通常上盘的数量相对会比较低的。对，好，大家有什么催吐？接下来我们回到我们的那先开票。
BC what?
All right. Thank you again, all three of you, and back to the desk.
Refresh.
Columbia votes 2024.
Oh, right.
Now, this is important. If you're still in line waiting to vote, stay there. While the polls may have closed now, you still have the right to cast your ballot as long as you were in that line before 8 p.m., so stay in that line. And tonight, British Columbians will elect a new government. How new? How different? Well, that is what we're here to find out.
Exactly. And we are going to take you around the province where the CBC has reporters in the field from Prince George to Kelowna to Victoria to Surrey,
这边我们
at
看到
watch parties
Alan
and
有
in key
回
ridings.
复。
We're going to visit our results
银行可以
desk
决定
early
自己的
and
primary
often
discount。
as
OK，
the
所以
new
基本
makeup
上
of
就是对，如
legislature
果
starts
说
to take shape.
你现
To
在
get a
是
national perspective, how
大家
BC
都是有
fits
跟
into
银行有贷
broader
款，但如果说
Canadian
今天就算
Catherine
央行
Allen,
它利息
host
降
of
了，
CBC
银行可以自己
Radio's
决
The
定
House
它要不
and
要
a
在
senior
它的
reporter
rate 上面
in
做修正。
CBC's
好，谢
Parliamentary
谢，
Bureau.
谢谢
And
Alan
we'll have
的
two
回复。
expert
然后
panels
目
to
前
break
大部
down
分
the
还是
races
会
for
跟着
you.
央行走。
Well, let's
OK，
take a
了解
quick
了
look at some
，Thank
of our
you。好，我
teams
们
stationed
非
across
常
the
感谢。
province. Now we have
对，所以
10
这个银行它是有
reporters
自己
out
决
in
定
the
权的，
field
但
this evening
因
across
为
all
可能
provinces
其他
of
银，
BC.
如
That
果你
includes
不
Katie
跟进
DeRosa
央行
at NDP
的
headquarters in downtown
汇率去
Vancouver.
调整，
Mira
其他
Baines
银
is
行
with
跟着
John
央行的
Rustad
汇
and
率
his
调整，那相对
supporters
你
in
的
Vancouver.
利率可能
And
就没
Gregor
有一个
Craigie with
优
Sonia
势。
Firstenow and
不知道这样解
supporters
释
in
是对不对？
Victoria. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the province, Claire Palmer is monitoring all things Vancouver Island from Nanaimo, where the Conservatives are trying to pick up some seats. Here in Metro Vancouver, we have Karen Larson in Richmond, where there are several tight races, and Belle Puri watching the
所以有
all-important
3个地
Surrey
区呢
ridings.
，Nanaimo
Chris Walker is in Kelowna watching the
Surrey
situation in
跟
the Okanagan and the
Richmond
Kootenays, and
Kelowna 有
Andrew
另外一个人
Kuriata
在
in Prince
report。
George, a conservative stronghold where independence
Prince
might
George
be a factor tonight. Gloria, of course, we can't talk about this election day without also talking about the weather.
Oh, no kidding. What a day it was. So that's the scene on the streets of Surrey, where drivers grappled
这是
with boiling
Surrey
water and
直
flooded
接
roads, where numerous rescues were
好
needed
crazy
amid road closures throughout the region.
不知道大家出
Relentless
去有没有
heavy
看到这个
rain
情况？
hitting
我
the
是
area
上网
starting
有看
yesterday
到很
afternoon
多
has
这个
caused
很多这样的
significant flooding
车子整个
throughout
都埋在
Metro
水里面，
Vancouver.
哇！
And some voting places in the
对
province have been
怎么
impacted by
拖
this
整个车
atmospheric river too. Throughout the day, some polling stations
Wow.
closed due to power outages. Most
所以
have
应该
been
会影
reopened.
响到一
If
些
you
本
did
来想
show
要
up
投
to
票的人，
vote,
因为今天的
you
天
may have
气，
been
我觉得可能会
redirected
让一
to an
些
open
中
vote
间
booth.
选民本来
Now,
就没有
here's
说
what
很
it
想要
looked
去
like
选，
and sounded like in
反而
North
就不去
Vancouver
了
this，morning.
因为有天气。哇哦！
This was Deep Cove earlier, where a stream
Deep
overflowed
Cove
its
北
banks
温那
and caused
边
flooding. The North Shore
直
Emergency
接
Operations Center says the amount of rain that occurred in such a short period of time overwhelmed the storm system. Officials say several dozen houses were flooded, and North Shore Rescue say they are now assisting with flood-related evacuations. Most are in the district of North Vancouver, but some residents were affected in West Vancouver and the city of North Vancouver. A reception center at the Mickey McDougall Gym in North Van has been set up for anyone impacted. Luckily, no injuries have been reported so far. North Shore residents are being asked to stay out of parks, forested areas, steep slopes, and all waterways. And earlier this evening, Metro Vancouver released a statement saying that residents should expect tap water to appear discolored, but that it remains safe to drink despite the cloudy
所以有
appearance.
可能
Latest on
大家饮用的
all
水
that's happening
会
with the
有
situation,
变
head
色
to
的
our
情况
website,
出现，不是
cbc.ca/bc.
但它
Jason,
新闻是
Jason,
说还是
Jason,
可以
we
喝的。
knew that results were going to be coming in quickly this evening because of the electronic voting system. We actually have our first results in. We had heard from Elections
哦，
BC
你们已经
that
有
they
一个
were going to
first
release
result，
the
已经有一
results
个
of
结
the
论出来
advanced
了，大家
votes,
想
and
说
we
这个
heard that
结
there was
论
a
会是如
record
何呢？
number of advanced votes. More than 1 million British
哦，
Columbians
因为
went to
advance
the
对，
polls to vote
提
before
早投
today,
票。
before Election Day. Maybe it
Oh,
was
we
a
got the
weather
result
situation. I
here.
don't know. So first results back in. The Conservatives are leading in 3 ridings
哇哦，
right
保守
now.
党
Again,
现在
this
是
is
领
early
先的哦。
going, but it's kind of, I mean, it's actually amazing to me to think that it's only 6 minutes past 8 o'clock after polls close, and we've already
Prince
beginning to
George.
see some results.
And this is
Mackenzie.
in Prince George, Mackenzie, where we have Keel Giddens leading. I mean, it's early days, folks. Only 10 votes cast so far right now, but that lead is 4. Let's take a look at some of the other results as
OK，
well.
还很
This is
早。
Abbotsford
哦，这边
South.
有另外
Bruce
一个
Banman leading by
Abbotsford。OK，
64 votes. Gloria, you can see already over 800 votes already being counted there. The electronic tabulation system was always promising to bring us faster results, and that's what we're seeing right now. And I believe we have one more riding to show you. Salmon Arm Shoe Swap, where Dave
哦，
and
对，我今
Williams
天
leading
早
by
些时候有做了一个
191
poll，
votes already.
看
Well,
了
I
一
can
下，
feel
大
the
概
tension
在
already because
看
we
我
are
频
beginning
道
to
的
get
朋
those
友们，
results so
你们都是
quickly.
支
I'd love to
持
hear what the political panel
你
has
们会
to
觉
say
得
about
哪一个
this.
政党？
Glenn?
不说你支
Thank
持，
you,
你们
Gloria.
觉得
Let's
哪
get
一
that
个
to you
政
right now.
党
Mo, what do
会
you make of these very early returns from advanced votes?
更加现在的
very
结
early.
果是怎么样？
The only one that caught my mind was the Bruce Banham Saracuna race. She's surprisingly close. That's a seat that I didn't think we had much of a
哦
chance.
，OK，
And I'm surprised how strong our vote is in that riding. But look, we're going to have to look at certain seats. Richmond, there's 3 seats there that we need to win. There's 10 seats in Surrey. We got to win about 7 or 8 of those. There's 2 seats on Vancouver Island that are in playing Comox and Campbell River, and there are 2 seats in Langley that we have to pick up. So that's what we have to achieve tonight. These votes count.
Alright， 所以今天大家在我们频道的猜投票的结果 ，We have 22个人投票，然后Conservative 大家是觉得未来 BC 省会由保守党来预估，那我们就看大家的 wish 会不会 come true。OK， 大家投票的结果会不会是成真的 ？OK，let's go back.
The results, I'm already seeing the NDP catching up a little bit here. But
哦 ，NDP 来
hopefully this is the trajectory
赶上
we're
了。
on. I'd like to see us pick up a lot of those seats that we lost in 2020, where we're going to go in the interior, and Kelowna, how those will play out, specifically Surrey, Richmond. I'm watching all of it.
And do you expect that support that the BC Liberals become BC United? Do you expect all of that support to go to the Conservative Party?
No, I think there's been people that came out of the BC United camp that have very clearly said they will not vote for the BC Conservatives. And, you know, big tent parties, that's what happens. But the question is, who is going to vote for the BC Conservatives, and whether or not they can even pick up some people that have voted NDP.
所以 BC Conservative 其实很 funny， 他从来是没有，真的是没有在 BC 省执政过以前都是 NDP 跟 Liberal。那我们知道 Liberal 2年前换名之后呢，就整体声望就下跌。我真的不知道他为什么会换名，换名到最后自己都不选，这个是一个非常奇怪的。就大家知道也可以留言让我知道一下，到底他为什么会做这个 决定，他是自己的 ego 吗？他想要一个自己的政党吗？还是他觉得 liberal 大家都听过，你现在换一个 BC 来，很多人都没听过这个政党。Oh, we got a result here. Conservative 目前还是领先10%啊。
Three ridings there was, a big cheer that went up, but of course everyone's well aware that it's still very early in the evening. Here at Eleanor Sturco's campaign office, she's not here right now. She's watching with her family at another location, but promises to come by later in the evening once she has a better idea of how things are unfolding. This riding is really a tight race. She is an incumbent from the neighboring riding, and Mike Starchuk for the NDP is the incumbent here. Both of them are star candidates.
Oh, Green Party.
It's just been a very close race.
Again, early results. Keep your eye on the bottom of the screen. The results that are in so far, the Conservatives are leading in 12 ridings, the NDP in 10, and the Greens are on the board, leading in 1 riding. For more details, over to Dan Bird and Michelle Elliott for some results.
Those new tabulators are working indeed. Look at the score. Conservatives leading in 12, NDP at 10, Greens at 1. Let's look at West Vancouver Sea to Sky. Jeremy Valeriot leading by 84 for the Greens, leading by 84 votes over Yuri Fulmer of the Conservatives, one of 27 polls reporting. Again, relatively early results. Boundary Similkameen, Donegal Wilson for the Conservatives, leading by 202 votes over Rolly Russell, the incumbent NDP MLA, 1,225, 4 of 33 polls reporting. And I think we have one more up here right now. North Coast Haida Gwaii, Tamara Davidson leading for the NDP by 15 over Chris Sankey.
And a reminder, when you see the star on the screen here, that indicates the incumbent candidate. In Maple Ridge East, Bob Deeth is leading right now for the NDP with leading by 86 votes and 3 of 23 polls reporting there. And our next riding result we have so far, of course, these are very early. Dallas Brody for the Conservatives in Vancouver, Kilchenna.
All right, so 目前看起来 Conservative 暂时在领先 but still so early 还很早，通常大概要1个小时多可能才会大概有一个比较 solid 的
91 votes over the NDP's Sylvia Lindgren, 7 of 38 polls reporting there. Gloria, Jason?
因为要跟大家 share 一下这个新闻哦，就是关于之前 NDP 他们的不是 NDP 就是 BC 省政府的一个 proposal， 就是说他们呢是计划要在这个 Grand 跟12街这边要盖一个supportive house。我们之前知道，如果 Richmond 还有之前，其实 BC Housing 就有计划在列治文置地广场旁边要盖一个 supportive house。supportive housing 主要就是给一些无家可归 homeless 或是 close to homeless 或是 low income 的人去住。那很多人都会当然就是不希望盖在他们家旁边哦。所以后来那个 Richmond 那个 project 就暂时没有成，因为非常多人去抗议，因为大家都不想。那另外，现在又出现一个新的 site， 它是在 West 12跟这个Granville， 大家知道就是在这个商店街那边的后面有一个 building， 他们打算要花好像不知道几百个 million 去把它改造成一个给一个 supportive housing。目前来讲那边的商家反对，但我不觉得那边会像 Richmond 这么54个 million 去重新 renovate 这一个 building， 所以大家如果有在那附近住或是你有在那边有店面的话，以后这个 building 很有可能，如果 NDP 这次当选以后，就会成为一个 supportive housing 给这些close to homeless 或是 homeless 的人，或是 low income 的人去住。对 ，All right， 我们回到我们的。
Dan Bird and Michelle Elliott for those results.
Yeah, no raincoats for me and Dan, but we should have worn runners because we are off and running with these results. Let's go to the Mid-Island and the Conservative candidate, Adam Hayduck, very tight right now, leading by just 6 votes over the incumbent NDP candidate, Josie Osborne. 3 of 33 polls reporting right now.
有没有是住在 Richmond 的朋友们有没有去投票 ？Richmond 也是非常的 close 因为华人大部分都好像都没有很积极去投票，但听说今年 Richmond 也有很多居民就是 step up 出去投票，就是基本上他之前在 Richmond 要盖那个住 社务已经激起一个很大的民愤，所以很有可能就为了这个原因，我也知道，反正这次 Richmond 有票数。哦 ，David Eby 领先
Surrey North, Mandeep Dhaliwal for the Conservatives, leading by
Conservative
70 over incumbent NDP Rachna Singh, 2 of 18 polls reporting. And let's fit in one more here. North Vancouver Lonsdale, incumbent New Democrat Bowen Law,
NDP
leading by
Bowen Law
76
这个是之
votes
前就
over
已经
David
是
Splett for the Conservatives. 1 in
当
23
选
polls
的，现
reporting.
在是
Jason.
re-elect。
Thank you very much. And I should point out when you see that number 37, the Conservative seats leading in 37 ridings, keep in mind 7 of those are BC United seats. So for those that did cross over and did decide to run as a Conservative, that is showing up. That
他说
British
37个
Columbians
现在
are
目
in
前
favor of them.
保
They're
守党
certainly
领先的
leading
位
at
置
this
有
point.
7个是之
Stephen
前
Quinn,
BC
what
Liberal
does your
Party
panel have
的
to say about this?
Well, I'll go to
参
Good
选
Try for
人，
this
他
one
们
because
因为他
we're
们
seeing
换到
Jeremy Valeriot
这个
in,
Conservative 那边，所以
West
他们那个
Vancouver
票都是
Sky.
比较
Yeah,
稳
and
的，
as
因为
folks
他
will
之
remember,
前
back
可
in
能就已经
2020,
是
Jeremy
在那边
Valeriot
做
won
了，
the
然后现在换
race,
过
and then
去
in the。mail-in ballots, Jordan Sturdy pulled ahead to get the actual election. So Jeremy Valeriot has been out knocking doors ever since, and I think that this is showing.
那你们觉得你们对现在的政府，或者你对未来政府有没有什么一些期望，想要改善的地方？基本上，这一次 Conservative 保守党打的几个旗号，就是让 housing 就是不管是在盖房里面，或是在 rezoning 在所有要求需求的许可证上面的流程做简化，让更多的发展商可以更快的方式去盖房 ，which is good. I think 这个是一个也是一个很蛮 efficient。NDP 那边就说他们会花多少钱去盖更多的房子，他没有提升改到这些流程，因为这些流程是他们自己已经做好的，所以他们也很难去做修改。那现在比较大的问题就是 multiply， 就是这个一改多的政策。那这个是 NDP 提出来，那如果真的保守党上了，他会不会对一改多这个政策做任何的修改？这个我们就不知道。那很多我知道有很多发展商现在都开始着手这一块，所以我相信这一次的大选对他们来讲呢，也是一个他们在一个观察的情况。
You're right, it is very early.
Rachel, where are you feeling anxious right now, or are you at all? You're just looking at.
他另外一个之前那个保守党的 candidate， 他其实也有来我们家，然后他就打的口号是说：“哎，你有小朋友？”我说：“对。”他说：“哦，你知道这个收集1、2、3吗？”我说：“其实好像不是很熟。其实我相信大家对收集1、2、3也都不是很知道什么，就上网查一下。基本上就是跨性别教育 transgender 那一块。那保守党那边他就说他们会去取消这一个这个curriculum。” 我不知道现在在学校里面，他们是不是有教到这一块，还是大家有什么样的经验可以分享一下，让我知道一下到底他们现在学校的 curriculum 关于这一块。因为我知道很多教育的书籍都会经由政府做一些修改嘛。我们知道First one, Prince George.
Prince George Mackenzie Kilgiddens leading the NDP candidate by 1,500 votes.
And I should just point out, if you're watching this right now, if you're listening to us on the radio, you'll see that there are 4 of 25 polls reporting. You might be thinking, that's not a lot of polls to make a projection like that. Here is the reality, though. That's actually a lot of data in terms of sheer number of votes. It's also good quality of data as well. Oftentimes, pollsters will reach out to likely voters. Well, these are
NDP
actual
追上，
votes,
现
so
在
our decision desk is able to
NDP
interpret
领先
all of
了
that to make that projection election.
Wow.
Seriously, I think we should all be wearing runners tonight.
Look at this. Look at this.
So quickly. My goodness, the NDP has closed that gap.
Wow.
We have an absolute tie right now. 45 seats leading for the NDP.
所以就说这一次会非常的
45 as well.
非常的接近
are on the
这
board
次的
leading
race
in
非常
3
close。
ridings right now. This is absolutely amazing.
And taking a look at that, Gloria, I immediately think about 2017. Of course, it's early days yet, but balance of power.
2017
anyone?
也
And
是
of
一个
course,
非
if
常
you're
close 的
a
一个
Green
race。
supporter, you're looking at that number 3, and I think you're probably pretty excited. I know there's a lot of watch parties happening across BC.
Green Party 也有
it's probably
3
going to
个
feel like a sporting event tonight when you look at 45.
Watch Party
and
也是一个 Watch
right
Party。
now.
大家也可以
Gloria,
留
we
言
have
讨论一下
another
你们
projection.
Yes, we do.
对现在的政
Decision
府，或是
desk
对未来
is
的政府有没有
now
什么想要期
projecting
待？
that Yes,
Oh,
John Rustad.
Of course，
elected,
他当然会选上。
projected elected
他
in his
是那
riding. There is
个
no surprise there.
no
He has held that
surprise.
riding since
Yeah.
2005, but he's in a very, very strong lead. Projected
4000个
elected
票，
leader
他当
of
上
the,
了
the
这个
Conservative Party. And this has got to be an amazing moment for him. I mean,
Natural
yes, to be
Lakes
elected,
在哪
but to
里？我真的
think
不知道，
about how
好像在
far
岛
he
上的
has brought
somewhere.
this party in such a very short time. We're talking about the last election here in British Columbia. There were 0 Conservatives on the board. He has
Zero
rallied the
conservative.
troops. He has joined
Yeah， 手上一
forces
次
with
没有
BC
是0
United
个保守
and
党的席
a
位，
very, very
所
strong
以这一
showing
次
for
竟然可以
John
跟
Rustad. I think
NDP
this must
head
be
to
a
head，
proud evening for him
真
so
的是不
far.
容
We
易。
are looking right now at a live shot of the Conservative headquarters in Vancouver. And yes, Gloria, as you mentioned, their leader, John Rustad, elected in Nechako Lakes.
John
I
Rustad
believe we also have a
elected.
projection for the NDP as well. Let's see if we can bring that up. Here it is. This is not a surprise at all. Spencer Chandler
Vancouver
Herbert,
West End
projected elected for
downtown 那
Vancouver
边
West End. You can see that
NDP
huge
选
lead
上
already early on. Not a
Spencer
surprise there, but I'm sure if you're NDP supporters,
Chandler
we're happy to see that
Herbert.
check mark to confirm
That's
an MMA
confirmed.
has been
That's right.
elected.
And if you're sitting watching from home, or if you're listening right now to our coverage as well, and you're saying, what about me? What about my riding? Our results desk is going to take you through all of the ridings throughout the evening.
Okay,
And
let's
if
see
you
if I
are
can
watching our coverage,
看一下
keep
有
your
没有
eye on
更
the
多
bottom
riding，
right-hand side
让
of
大
the
家可以看
screen,
得到
because
目
we
前
are
的情况。
scrolling through all 93 ridings, updating them regularly, scrolling through. So keep your eye there if you're looking for your specific riding. Right now, over to Dan and Michelle for more results.
Fast and furious, hot and heavy. This is where the results are coming in. Let's go to the Greens. Skeena Green, Terry Young with 1 vote. Claire Ratte, the Conservative, with 1 vote. Yes, we can do math as journalists. It's quite amazing. Love it. Love it. Let's go to another one, another Green vote. Victoria Beacon Hill. Sonia Furstenau, the leader of the Green Party, leading by 31 votes over the incumbent Grace Lohr. Sonia Furstenau switched ridings to move down here, said it was due to family. She's trying to essentially be kind of a giant killer in this case. Grace Lohr is also the former Minister of Children and Family Development at the time the government was dissolved. 2 of 24 polls. And West Vancouver Sea to Sky. The Green, perhaps second or third time's the charm for Jeremy Valeriot, leading by 132 for the Greens over Yuri Fulmer for the Conservatives.
And let's head over to Salmon Arm. Shoe swap into the interior now. The Conservative candidate there, projected elected, David Williams, leading by 2,200 votes and projected elected in Salmon Arm shoe swap. And one more for you in the Kootenay Rockies. The incumbent Tom Shapika, the independent candidate, not leading. We have Pete Davis, the Conservative candidate there, leading now by 251 votes, 4 of 27 polls reporting.
Let's go back to the Lower Mainland and over to the Fraser Valley. Abbotsford South, Bruce Banman, the Conservative who jumped ship from BC United, leading by 1,674 over Sarah Cooner of the NDP, 2,400, 12 of 24 polls reporting. Richmond Bridgeport, Teresa Watt, the incumbent.
Teresa Watt
United
领
to the
先
Conservatives,
，of
leading
course，
over
她是应该
1,000
是
now
很稳
over
的。
Linda Lee
Yeah.
of the NDP.
比较
5 of 20
risky 的
polls
是
reporting.
Richmond
And
Center
one more here on the board for you.
还有 British
Chilliwack Cultus Lake,
Steve
Alia
城那
Warba,
边吧。
Stephen Point, the former lieutenant governor. This is his daughter, leading by 741 votes for the Conservatives over incumbent NDP candidate Kelly Padden, almost 2,000 votes.
All right, Dan, Michelle, thank you very much. Catch your breath, British Columbia. We knew tonight had every possibility of being a close race. And folks, this
Very
is
close.
a dead heat right now. The
But
NDP
It hasn't moved.
It hasn't moved in a while. That's true. The NDP leading or elected in 45 ridings. The very same for the
Wow.
Conservatives and the Greens right now.
Head to
leading
head，非
in
常接近。
3 ridings. This is what it looks like across the province. A lot of blue, of course, you can see it on the east side of the province. The island down there, virtually all orange, but there is a speck of blue in territory that the NDP is normally familiar with. I want to show you something else. This
I'm
is
seeing green in Skeena. I'm seeing green.
it's a small lead. I think we just saw it's a very small lead. We'll watch what happens there because perhaps an unexpected win for the Greens if that continues. But I want to show you, this is fascinating, folks. Look at the share of the vote. Gloria, look at this. 0.3% separates the vote share between the NDP and the Conservatives. The NDP right now just edging this. Essentially, what this means is across the province right now, we're pretty much seeing a dead heat in terms of how many people are voting for the NDP, how many are voting for the Conservatives. Here is what it looks like in terms of a seat change. You may remember Gloria mentioned a few moments ago the number to watch for the NDP on this board, 17. Right now, they are trailing in 19 seats, which, of course, as the balance of power shows right now, has cost them a majority situation right now. For the Conservatives, remember, they started at 0, so they could only go up. And up have they gone?
Conservative 只会往上的，因为它没有任何的候选人是之前有选上的。
share of vote compared with the number of seats, there's not a direct translation there. Share of vote is about efficiency. When it translates into seats, that's just how efficient those votes are, and it isn't a straight across comparison there. But oh my goodness, what a night! Let's head over to Vancouver Island right now. Gregor Craigie is with Adam Olsen at Green Party headquarters. Gregor?
I am here at Green Party headquarters, as you said, Gloria Makarenko with Adam Olsen. And
这边给大家看一下比较 close 的 tie 的几个地方 ，1% lead， 包括在这个 Burnaby North Michael Wu 21 votes， 哦，这个还 so early， okay， not interested. Go back.
Place is going to have to work together. They're going to have to find a way to work on behalf of British Columbians and not just themselves.
is this, I mean, it's early, so I know none of this is final, but is this essentially, does that look like what would be a dream scenario for the Greens where you hold the balance of power yet again and essentially could play kingmaker?
Well, I'd like to have a few more than that.
Yeah, so 我们如果你记得的话，在2017年选的时候，那时候其实 NDP 跟 Conservative 的票是非常不是 Conservative 跟 Liberal 的席位是非常接近的。最后面是由 Green Party 的3票去决定谁做了多数的政府。所以那时候其实 Liberal 是领先，但因为加了 Green 的票，反而 NDP 变领先，所以最后才变成说 NDP 下执政。他们就说是不是今年有可能会重复那时候情况 ？I think very likely。如果 Green Party 他真的能 hold 住那3席的话，大家在这边的人可以跟我 say 一个 hi 吗？让我知道你们的存在，然后跟我说一下你们觉得这次大选你们有没有去投？你们因为这次的天气的影响到你？但是我觉得这个今年真的是蛮，其实我平常以前4年前好像没有太多的 attention， 因为那时候大家知道可能 NDP 一定会上。但今年就真的是 very hard to tell， 真的是非常之刺激。
No green beer yet, but there is a lot of fun time for the Greens. It's the place to be right now.
I think we have to get you some fancy headphones. I think, Greg. It's pretty noisy there at Green headquarters.
I could use some radio headphones right now, Gloria. I won't lie.
A raucous crowd in Victoria, where our Gregor Craigie is. It feels like a sports match. Both, I'm sure, in that crowd right now. And when you look at these results, dead heat, the NDP, 45 seats that they're leading or elected in, the Conservatives as well, and the Greens, as we just heard, excited by that 3.
Well, and we were talking earlier about Elections BC saying, first of all, they were going to release the results of the advanced polls. Now it's all mixed in. We've got same-day results and we've got advanced polls coming in.
And these numbers will continue to come in. Lots to watch for. Why don't we chat with our political watchers panel. Shachi Curl, when you look at the numbers so far, does it galvanize pollsters across the province?
I mean, I'm galvanized. I'm also hitting refresh repeatedly on Elections BC, trying to get those numbers in real time. It looks like we're going to have about 1 million votes counted as we speak, out of registered about 3.5 million. So we're very much on the way to starting to see the trend emerging. But hey, from the beginning of this campaign, the trend was going to be pretty tight, and it is certainly turning out that way. And this is where I start to wonder the impacts and the effects of what that atmospheric river may have done in terms of turnout, particularly in Metro Vancouver. A friend of mine, Daniel Stockmeyer, is a professor at the University of Ottawa, penned a research study back in 2018 and found that for every millimeter of rain on election day, that depressed voter turnout by 0.1%. Now, I'm not going to make you do all the math with me, But what that could, I have done the math, and what that could actually result in is almost 100,000 fewer voters if they just looked out the window and
应该
went,
一
nope.
定有很
Now
多
that's
中间
worst
选
case
民他
scenario.
就没
We'll
有
see.
去
But
选，
it
所以
certainly
他就
has me
说，因
thinking
为
about turnout.
好像
Well,
1个
I guess
millimeter
that's
的
what happens
雨
when you
就
have
会
an
影响到
atmospheric river
10万
across
个
so
人。
much of the
那
province
今天
on
我们知道
election day.
昨
All
天
right,
晚
Shashi,
上到
thank you
今
very
天应
much.
该
We'll
下
hear
了超
more
过
from our panel
50个
throughout the evening.
millimeter
Right
的
now,
雨。
let's go back to those results. Dan,
Yeah.
Michelle?
We already have some changes. If you
哦
looking at the board,
NDP
the
领
NDP
先
up
right now。
47, the Conservatives 44. Let's look
NDP
over
现
here.
在领
The
先
seat
3个
change
席
in
位。
Surrey Delta.
哦
The NDP
46
down
哦
6
Wow.
seats. This is big. The Conservatives up 9. Let's have a look at some of those results right now. And we have another flip if you're looking at the screen. Conservatives at 40, leading at 49. The NDP at 42. The Greens at 2. We'll
变得
call
太
out some
快了
results
吧
here.
那
Riding
我比股
results.
价
Surrey
变得还快。
Cloverdale, Eleanor Sturco leading by 3 votes over Mike
哦
Starchuk.
这个
This
还
is again
too
battle
early。
of the incumbents. Judy Mayer, no photo, sorry, with 1 vote there.
Wow, so
Very
close.
close again.
如果你有
Don't
去
have
投
the
票的朋友
party
们
polls reporting, that's all right. Surrey
Kudos
Fleetwood,
to you
incumbent
出
Jack
去，
Rupar,
因为这个
longtime
应该是一个
MLA
非常
leading by
close race， 所以我觉得每一个
votes
票
over
都
Alex
有
Dargill,
票。
just over 3,100 votes there. 10 of 19 polls reporting. We're starting to see a plurality. And Surrey North, Mandeep Dhaliwal for the Conservatives, leading by almost 1,000 votes over the
Surrey
incumbent New
Surrey
Democrat
也是
Rachna
conservative
Singh.
这个
And let's head
Surrey
over now
North
to
的区
Surrey
域。
Guildford and the Conservative
Guildford is
candidate Indir
conservative.
Singh
Wow.
Ranjawa leading
哦，
by
这个很接近
108 points,
3144
8
跟
votes over the NDP incumbent Gary Begg. 11 of 19 polls reporting right now in Surrey Panorama.
哇，
The
好
Conservative
近哦
candidate Brian
，7000
Pepper
多跟
leading by
6800。
283 votes over the NDP incumbent Ginny Sims. 11 of 15 polls reporting there. And Surrey Serpentine River, this is another one to watch. The Conservative candidate Linda Hepner leading by 230 votes over the NDP candidate Baltej Singh Dillon. 13 of 19 polls reporting.
Thank you very much to Michelle and to Dan. And oh my goodness, I feel like I'm watching a sporting match tonight.
it's a
The way
horse
things
race.
are bouncing around,
Yeah,
this is like
absolutely.
a ping pong match. I don't know. Conservatives
乒
now
乓
leading in
match 真的
49
是一直
ridings.
变来变去，
The
现在目前
the
conservative
Greens
还
leading
领
in
先
2
7个席
ridings.
位，but still too early， 现在还太早了。不过已经8点半哦，
And just
已
thinking
经
about those
过
ridings
了半
outside
小
of
时。
Metro Vancouver.
然后待会再看的话呢，帮我按个
all
赞，
of the
分享
rain
一
that
下
came
这
from
个
that
这个视
atmospheric
频
river.
给你朋友。如果
When
大
we're
家
looking
想
at
要
the
来
projected
come
elections
out to
in
这个
the
watch
NDP,
party，
both
一
in
起
North,
来看一下
Nanaimo, Gabriel Island, probably no
我们
surprise
的
there. New Westminster as
2024
well, and
BC 省
also
选的结果。
well, all of Vancouver seems to have gone the NDP's way. Mo, what are you looking at right now that is looking like it hasn't gone the NDP's way or isn't going the NDP's way that's concerning?
Sorry. The last numbers I saw was Jagrup, Ginny, and Rachna Singh were all losing in Surrey. That's a problem for us, and we have to flip those seats back into our column. Again, it's very early in terms of those results, so we'll just keep on waiting to see what's happening in Surrey. Same thing with Baltej Dillon and Linda Hepner. The margin is about 300 votes there. So some
Hello
very tight races in Surrey,
Bill， 你
and
好。
how
他
they
说
shape up
我
is
在
what
高贵
causes
临
that
港
chart to
保
go from
守
49
党
to
竞选
45
人
to
两眼
42.
无神无情
And
打
we
死
really are
选
seeing that. I mean, I don't know. It's because we are
也
seeing
是
early
无所
returns. It
作
looks
为。
like it's very
我看一下
volatile,
你
but
高
each
贵
one
领
is
党市
each
长上
return that comes in is just
可能
sending
太
the
累
news
了，
speed
每
up
天
right
在
to
拜票，是不是没有？
I am also watching Surrey, not so much
我这个
concerned, but very
呀，我
interested.
觉得
I
真的
think
有
as
时候
somebody that was in the war room for the
要
2020
候
campaign,
候
that
选
is
人也是
always
要
what we're
给人家一
watching.
种一个形
Surrey,
象嘛。
those
如果你
ridings
要选上
are
的话，
kind of this bellwether of the province itself. I'm also
是
interestingly watching
高贵
Coquitlam
领
Burke
党的
Mountain, which is we're
riding
leading in.
Yeah.
That was Joan Isaac's seat, which we lost. And then Fraser Nicola, Jackie Taggart, who was a BC Liberal MLA for a long time, were winning there as well, whether or not we'll hold that seat. So some of those seats that were BC United MLAs, I'm watching to see whether or not we'll hold.
And Pete Fry, Green Party now leading in 2 ridings and
哦
still
，Port
no one
Coquitlam
declared
就只
projected
有
elected just yet.
一
No,
个
it looks like
选
Jeremy
区，好
Valeriot's still
像
maintaining a pretty good
叫
lead,
做
and
Keenan
Botterell
and 看一下
in
他是不是
Saanich, North Islands, also a good lead. I'm watching
哦，真
Victoria
的是有一
Hill,
点
not
两眼无神。看一下这位照片，上面看起来还可以，应该是这个吧 ？Bill 是不是这个？ 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 那我们看一下他今天会不会被他两眼无神给选上。现在看一下那边选区的情况。
Closest races right now that are separated by fewer than 100 votes, including Surrey Cloverdale, Surrey City Centre, Cowichan Valley, Lundy, North Island, Surrey Fleetwood, Wandafeuca, Malahat. Right there you see 5 Conservatives leading, 2 NDP leading. What that would look at, the difference, again, fewer than 100 votes. So these would be the party standings if those seats were to go Conservative. 48 for the Conservatives, 43 NDP, 2 for the Green. Now, what if we were to flip that? And again, when you have just a handful of votes separating some of those, a completely different picture. 48 for the NDP and 43 for the Conservatives. And again, the Greens, they were leading in 3 at one point, Jason, now down to 2.
Razor edge of a majority situation for both parties. Certainly compelling to watch right now. Pete Fry alluded to this earlier, but there are 2
这
Greens
次这个保守
right
党
now.
真的是
Gloria,
来势汹
Sonia
汹。
Furstenau is
Yeah.
not one of them. In
不
Victoria,
要
Beacon
让
Hill
这
right now,
个
Bruce
现
will
任
tell you
的
that she is
现任的政
trailing.
党感到
We'll
非
show
常
that to
大
you in
压
just a
力，
minute
不然
if
他
you're
也不
watching
会
on
一
our
直
visual platforms.
记
But
这些
here's
东西
Grace
哦，
Lord,
在这
who
边
has, you have
做
to
一
say,
些
a
花那么多
healthy
钱
leader,
记这些 flyer。
2,779 votes. Grace Lore, a cabinet minister in the past NDP government. She had the file of Minister of Children and Family Developments. And of course, Sonia Furstenau taking a risk by leaving the Cowichan Valley, where she was the past MLA for 2 elections, contesting this riding. And I can tell you right now, our decision desk can tell you that Grace Lore will carry Victoria Beacon Hill. A big announcement. It means that Green Party leader Sonia Furstenau will be defeated in the capital.
Wow, Green Party 被
Well, she
defeat。
knew she took a risk by changing ridings. Jason, she went from a solid seat and a solid showing in the last election in Cowichan Valley. She decided to go to an NDP stronghold, and voters have sent their message.
All right, well, let's look at some of these riding results. Dan,
Green Party 的这个 leader 既然没有选上他自己这个选区哦，因为他们说他今年决定换了选区哦，从他自己很 strong 的选区换到了这个一个新的地区，那边基本上是一个 NDP 的一个选区。没想到果然，他以为他可能可以在那边 ，you know， 赢上那个选区，就没想到还是被。
Quite close.
还是输了。
I mean, tied essentially there. We're going to throw up some results for you here in Vancouver, Yaletown. Terry Young, NDP, leading by 780 votes.
Yaletown
the
NDP
conservative Melissa D. Genova, 16 of 19 polls reporting. Up next, we have Vancouver Point Grey, David Eby, Premier, 2,200 vote lead over Paul Ratchford.
David Eby 要赢了 West Point Grey。Bill， 我给你看一下你这个最新的 update。Port Coquitlam 现在是 NDP 领先，所以。他真的无精打采的样子，让看起来可能没办法，所以 Port Coquitlam 那边可能是 NDP 那边会拿到那个地区。
The NDP candidate Christine Boyle projected elected there, and John Cooper, the Conservative candidate, behind by 6,500 votes there. And another projected elected in Vancouver, Coachella. Dallas Brody, the Conservative candidate, projected elected for Vancouver, Coachella. And we got another one for you in the Vancouver area. Vancouver South Granville.
South Granville, NDP， 哇，好接近哦。
projected elected in
一下 NDP， 一下 Conservative， 目前看起来 Vancouver NDP 还是比较多。
Dan, thank you very much. And at this point in the evening, we've got lots of results. In fact, 63% of the results cast, the votes cast across the province, we're playing with those right now. There are 11 close races that are under 100 votes that are separating them. And this is the picture for the new Democratic Party right now. Overall, they've got a 45% share of the vote, but you can see, look along that right-hand margin. You can see how many points they are down by. In some areas, yes, it's 2.4. Fraser Valley, Northern Interior, down by 6. But there are some significant declines there for the NDP that helps to paint the picture of what we're seeing.
Richmond down 7.8%.
Where we're sitting right now, Conservatives at 47. leading
真的
in
是要
27. Oh,
给
back
他
to
一个
26. That's flipping around
NDP， 真的
NDP
是在这
leading
边
in
建这
45
个
ridings in the
出色屋，我
Greens
相
right
信
now
很多 Richmond 的
in
居民
2.
真的都很
Let's
不
take
爽，
you to
Just
然
before we do that,
后
Gloria, we have a
真的
result
是
that
很
brings
想
to your
要
attention. Vancouver
哦
Point
David
Grey,
Eby
NDP leader David Eby
No doubt
wins Vancouver Point Grey. We knew this had the possibility of being a close race. Of course, David Eby unseating former BC
Yeah，
Premier
我
and
觉得
BC Liberal
他
leader
选
Christy Clark
上
in
不是一
this
个很大
riding,
的
but he
惊
will
讶。哇，我
carry
现在看
Vancouver
Conservative 跟
Point
NDP 又
Grey.
非常接近
You know
了
he's going to be happy
，46
about
to
that, but I'm
45，
sure
差一
David
席而
Eby
已。
watching the broader story right now for his party.
Right. Well, speaking of that, let's head to NDP headquarters here in Vancouver, where Katie DeRosa is standing by. Katie?
Well, it's a bit of nervous energy here, but certainly cheers as NDP candidates get elected or projected to be elected. Adrian Dix, Brenda Bailey, Christine Boyle. I'm here with Ravi Kahlon, who's from Delta North, housing minister. Housing was a big issue in this campaign. How do you think the NDP
Ravi
message
Kahlon
landed?
就是我们的住房部长，
with housing, we heard
这
from a
个
lot
现
on
在
the
的政
doorstep. I mean, healthcare, housing,
政府里
cost of
面。
living were the big issues that
我他
overwhelmingly
明
we were brought up on
今
the
晚就
doorstep.
知道他
And, you know,
之
I
后
think
还
people
会不会
sort of
继续
understand
做
what
这
we were
个住
trying to
房
do,
部
but they
长。
also understood
So
that
we'll
we have
see.
inflation, we have pressures with interest rates going up, and of course, almost 300,000.
说真的，这4年来的房价也没有任何的下降，所以在大家眼中，他们也不觉得 NDP 有什么作为。虽然说他们出了很
I
多
mean, the results
tax
are neck and neck. Does that worry you at all?
speculation empty home empty homes Vancouver speculation tax 啊，有 flipping tax 啊，yeah but
every other election has been very
最主要的盖 supply 跟 demand 还是没有解决，所以当然这个跟很多移民进来的人，这几年移民进来的人，不管是 PR 跟working permit 进来很多也有很大的关系。从这个数据看起来，大家对现任的政府就已经信任度已经下降很多。
This one was unique in the sense that people are dealing with tough times, the global inflation, the pressures they're facing on their daily lives. So it was a little bit different in that way. But people were also feeling hopeful.
大家觉得现任政府你有什么想法？你觉得现在这个这么接近的一个选票，你觉得这是你预期到的吗？或者说你今天有没有去选，以及你有没有被这个大雨影响，反而不去选的？可以在下面留言分享一下，我们可以互相讨论。
Right, Katie, thank you very much. And you know, past elections, you would say 40 minutes after polls closed, still early days. Not early days with the tabulation system.
这个 Bill 跟你说一下，你们那一区已经 confirmed 了，就是 NDP 这边看到已经 Mike Penworth 已经 check mark， 他已经当选了。Yeah. All right, we'll talk about Richmond. Let's go see Richmond Battleground.
Let's take you to Richmond now and
take
a look at
Richmond. See,
first of all.
See what's going on.
The Conservatives with 50% of the vote there, the NDP at 40.6%. And let's look at the seat change and see where those changes have come. The Conservatives picking up 3 seats there. The NDP -2, losing 2 seats. And let's look at where some of that pickups have
supporting housing，
and
真
what
是
else
让
is
Richmond 居
in
民今年
Richmond.
冒着大雨也要去投票，我觉得。
Elected candidates and the Conservative candidate Teresa Watt.
Teresa Watt, which is
also in Richmond. 3 other ridings. Richmond
Hong
Chan, former broadcaster for the Conservatives, leading by 2,000 votes over the incumbent New Democrat Henry Yao. 5,100 votes. 15 of 17 polls reported. Richmond Queensborough, the Conservative Steve Cooner leading by 730
Steve Cooner 就
votes
是我
over
们
the
这边选
incumbent
区的
NDP Aman Singh. 14
之前
of
来我
20
们
polls
家
reporting.
敲门
And the
的
last
这个。
slide, Richmond Steveston, Kelly Green, the incumbent New
所以
Democrat,
Richmond
leading by
Steveston 选了，
17
哇，
votes
超接近哦，70票的 difference。 Wow.
Oh my goodness. And
That's
we're
so
talking
close.
about 67% of the polls that Jason mentioned that we're dealing with right now. That's close to 1.6 million votes in the system right now. Stephen Quinn, over to you and to hear what the panel has to say about this.
So now NDP 又领先了 46 to 45。所以 Richmond 变天了，以前都是橘色的，这一次变成蓝色的。除了目前 Steveston 看起来还没有一个确切的 一
Yeah,
个
I
党
mean,
派
as the
以外。
campaign evolved and we see we're doing well in the other Victoria seats, we did put extra resources from those seats and moved them over to assist in that race. And we did it elsewhere in the province. We did it in some of the seats in Surrey as well. And so that's standard fare in terms of approach that we take. It obviously has paid off in that case. And hopefully, as the night progresses, we'll see it pay off in some of the other seats, particularly in Surrey.
And Pete Fry, Christine Boyle, making the jump from Vancouver City Council, is now projected elected. So she will go from being a councillor to an MLA by the looks of things.
And she worked hard for that, and I'm so proud of her because she's an amazing colleague and she'll do great in the legislature. Of course, I am
giving you any ideas over there.
Right now, I'm really more thinking about Sonia Furstenau and how disappointing it is. She's been a tremendous inspiration for the party, and you know, I think her performance in the debate really turned a lot of people and gave a lot of wind behind the sails for the BC Greens in this election. And there's going to be some thinking about how we move on without Sonia, it's for sure.
Sonia Green Party 的 leader 被 defeat， 所以 Green Party 现在没有 leader。
Independents, 1% for the non-affiliated. And
no.
Rachel, were you? I mean, how big a difference were you expecting those independents to make?
Me personally, I don't know that they would have made a huge difference. We haven't had elected independents in this province, and so
yeah， 所以我在网络上面看到很多人就说有很多独立，这次有很多独立的 candidate 出来选，那他们觉得独立 candidate 其实只是把票给分开了，因为很多独立 candidate 其实之前是 liberal 的人，当初因为被要合并 conservative 的时候，他们就决定他们不想要去 conservative， 或 conservative 也不想要提名他，他们就决定自己去做这个 independent。那 independent 出来的时候，会分了很多 conservative 的票知道网络上面可以看到。So 之前是说像在Richmond 的选区，比如说在
What would you possibly name that nervous energy?
I'm more
像在 Richmond 我们看到之前温蒂医院他是也是 independent， 他就 5.7%， 但其实并不影响到现在的情况了，所以 I think it's okay， 也没有像大家想的这么的差异这么的接近。Yeah， 因为在 Richmond 看起来就是要变蓝天了。
Here is what we see right now. Wanda Fuqua Malahat.
Right, so Surrey 跟 Richmond Stephenson， 哇 ，Surrey 那边都很 close。
Look at
Surrey
that
那边
difference, 24 votes. The Conservative candidate is up by 24 votes. Wanda Fuqua Malahat. Meanwhile, Surrey, a couple of ridings there. Surrey City Centre, Surrey
Cloverdale 才刚开始
where the
开
difference is under 55 votes.
那其他都很接近哇
Gloria,
Under 24。
Hey, my vote doesn't matter. Take a
Under
screenshot of that shot. Right
Surrey
there.
Center 那
Because
边哇，很
clearly
近
it
哦。
does matter. That is a number of
So
ridings,
close.
which quite frankly are determining not only who forms government, but with what strength as well.
Well, again, we've been talking since the outset about 47 being that magic number. You just pointed out that is within majority territory. 93 seats across the province. You need 47 to form a majority government. We just mentioned Surrey Cloverdale riding, and that's where CBC's Belle Puri is tonight. Belle.
Well, Gloria,
连
you know
我
we've been
爸
calling
妈
it
都
the
投
race
哭
of
那
the
儿。
incumbents, and
对你爸妈跟我是同个选区。
well ahead. I have one of her
很奇怪啊，今年那个在 Richmond 反而我们选区被归纳为Queensborough， 非常的奇怪。我觉得我在投票的时候又问他，为什么我们是 Richmond 被归到 Queensborough？ 因为 Queensborough 我们知道那边是属于新西敏 New West 的选区。他说今年选区有做修改，所以我们知道在 Queensborough 有很多那种印度裔的种族，所以他们这一次选出来的，不管是 NDP 之前当连任的Aman Singh 也是印度种族，现在 Steve Cooner 也是，所以那边才是最大本营。我们这边其实只是一个但 anyways， 反正结果出来了就是，对。
And what it has been. And the Conservatives have come forward as the color, the representatives of change.
And you were saying, I mean, you were out today right up to the last minute. You're still wet from being out there. Did the weather, do you think, have an impact on voter turnout?
I don't know. The weather, those who will vote will walk through 5 feet of snow. Those who won't vote, you couldn't get them out with dynamite. At the door, the hardest thing is the person who says, I don't want to vote. What do you do with them? We're a democracy. Get out and vote.
Right.
Get
well,
out and
it's going
vote.
to be a bit of a nail biter for the next little while.
Not for this riding, I hope.
Thank you very much. That was Will Hanks, a volunteer, and we are at the Eleanor Sturco's campaign office.
All right, Belle, thank you very much. In the last few minutes, we haven't seen a
我看
whole
到
lot of
Matt
change as we go
Chow
to the
好
beginning
像
when the
富
polls
人都
closed,
投
but recent
NDP，
update here. NDP
这
now
个可能不一定哦。我给你看一下这个新闻。Lululemon 的老板够富了吧？他是前任的 CEO， 他基本上就在 David Eby 的选区里面。他说 Eby will tell you the conservatives are far right. Conservative 是朝右翼的，但是呢，他们其实都没有说他们自己是communism， 就是所谓的共产主义啊。所以 I don't think， 我觉得他基本上是够有钱的吧？他没有 support， NDP， 而且他在 David Eby 的 writing 就是make a lot of story， 他每天在他家好像都会换不同的牌子好像是换了两三次吧。对，他的意见就是说，因为NDP 好像会把一些大家就是中产阶级辛苦赚的钱，然后去分配给一些就是不工作的人，那导致说反而中产阶级工作很辛苦努力赚钱，为自己的梦想去建造了一个家园，结果最后自己享受不到，还要分配给别人，所以他觉得这个是没有任何对这些中小企业或者对认真工作的人没有任何 incentive。So I don't know， 我不知道富人的想法是什么，因为没有太多富人的朋友。但新闻上面以他来讲的话，他基本上就好像是在那个区，然后告诉大家，富人朋友们都不要投 NDP 的。46 46跟45就差1。好，非常感谢 Matt 的留言。Matt， 你可以跟我们说一下为什么你觉得富人都会投 NDP 吗？你的富人还是说你认识一些比较有钱的人，他们跟你说的。
Bulkley Valley Stikine, and the conservative candidate there, Sharon Hartwell, is leading over by 380 votes over the incumbent longtime politician Nathan Cullen for the NDP there. So the Conservatives leading in Bulkley Valley Stikine. In Boundary Similkameen, the Conservative candidate Donegal Wilson leading by more than 1,200 votes over the NDP incumbent Rolly Russell.
NDP 现在又领先3个席次了。
And we keep going in Fraser Nicola. Tony Luck for the Conservatives leading by 965 votes over Francine Joe with the NDP 3,300 votes. 24 of 43 polls reporting. The next slide up, please. Drum roll. I'm going to unbutton my jacket because it's that exciting. And the numbers have changed again. Wanda Fuka Malahat, Marina Sapovniksov.
这个就是刚刚很接近的选区，现在还是 leading 100多票。
Dana Lajeunesse of the NDP just over 3,000. Woo!
Do your
I might as well do one more.
Wow, tied.
Amna Shah for the NDP, almost 6,000 votes. Zishan Walla for the Conservatives.
Wow.
They're tied. 18 of 20
他也跟我一样很
polls
激动。
reporting. Yeah, good time to recharge your beaker.
He will have his jacket off. Sweating from
太热
excitement.
太 exciting。
There's good reason to stay with us, everybody. We're going to keep
And
an
there's some
eye on
votes here as well. Let's jump in.
vote share.
Michelle, go ahead.
It's virtually tied right now in Surrey
Wow.
City Centre between the
Surrey City is
Conservatives
tied.
and the NDP. That's really all.
对
I
，Surrey
can say right
City
now, right?
基本上比较多。
for each of them.
Interesting， 因为比较多应该都是
It's amazing.
租 tenant 还比较多，因为那边我们知道 Surrey Central 很多那些 high rise， 那些占很大的 population 嘛，所以 it's interesting， 那边是 high。因为我感觉是说，如果你今天是在租房是租客，因为 NDP 现在很多政策都是保障租客，所以对租房的人来讲说，他们会觉得如果 NDP 继续执政，他应该会比较倾向于租客这边，所以 maybe 就是房东跟租客互相投不同的 party。
An absolute tie in Surrey
Wow.
City Centre.
Surrey City
Cloverdale.
Centre. Pretty big.
Separated by
很多
48
蛮多人的
seats. The
蛮多人的
Conservatives
那边。
are leading there. Kelowna Centre, NDP leading by 51. Richmond Steveston, NDP
没有
leading by
，Surrey City 里面很多 5900多票，其他地区哇，我看
very, very
Court
close races.
Courtney 都有12000，那应该是比较大的区。
East.
Oh,
Very, very
Gloria,
uh,
when I look at those numbers, especially in Surrey City Centre, you have to wonder
好
how
像
many local
Vancouver 富人
voters
区
have
都是
chose
NDP
not
票
to go
仓。
out
这
because
个
of the
我
weather
看一下，
situation.
好
I know
像
the
刚刚
East
确
River
实
hit parts of
他
Surrey
们报
really
告出来的
difficultly
结
as
果
well.
好
But
像确实
yeah,
是这
there
样
you
子。
go, folks. That is why this
Double
race is
check.
super close right now. So many
我
ridings
看一下温
teetering
哥
back
华
and
西
forth.
区
The
那边的
NDP, though,
情况。
currently leading or elected in 48 ridings. That could switch
Okay,
to 47
so
for the Conservatives if those close ridings go
Langara
way. Let's check
算
in
是
on
比
how
较西
conservative
区那边，现
supporters
在
are feeling.
很接近
New
NDP 跟
is at
Conservative
their headquarters
差
in
了300
Vancouver.
票而已，那
Mira,
边很
what's
接
the
近。
what's the vibe like?
然后我们看一下
Well, this is
Vancouver Point Grey， 我们知道
the
David
nail
Eby 就是
biter.
NDP
Now the mood
这种
here
呢
is
Kuchina 那
very
边
upbeat.
是
People here are excited. There
Conservative
are a lot
哦
of cheers
Kuchina 是
going up.
Conservative， 对
But
对没
people
错。
are
然
also
后
slightly nervous. They're keeping their eyes on their television sets. And I'm joined by BC Conservative strategist Brad
South
Dubik. And I
Granville
mentioned
South
to him
Granville 是
earlier
NDP，
that I've
对，所以
noticed
确
that there
实
are
好像
lots and lots of younger
没
people
错
here in the crowd. And
You're
it's a
right.
Saturday night. So, Brad, can you tell me what are they doing?
Fraser
Is this your
View 也是
strategy playing
NDP
out?
Vancouver Fraser View
Yeah,
所以
obviously
反而
young
在
people,
Vancouver 西
is our
区
strength.
或是东区比较
It's a fundamental paradigm
高级
shift,
的区域
federally and provincially,
确
where
实是
older
NDP 的
voters
票仓。
support liberals, they support New Democrats. Younger voters are
Renfrew
upset
区
about
Vancouver
conservatives.
Renfrew
They're
也
the
是
ones
NDP
being
哦 Adrian
impacted
Dix 就之前那
by
个
the
卫生部长。
by the high rent prices, the crime, this economic
Yeah.
insecurity. Young people are the ones being impacted by quite frankly, these failed policies.
Yeah, so 基本上看起来只有一个区在温哥华目前是Conservative 的，其他确实都是 NDP 的。
That you may not have some of the campaign
Yeah,
infrastructure and the
没
ground
错
game.
You're very
but
right，
you did
确
have
实是这
something
样子。
else.
But we have momentum. I mean, we had a desire for change that really
同意你的说法，
into
因
our
为
message.
事实证明就是这样子。
We had David Eby
哇
quite frankly,
，NDP 现在
very
领
few
先了
accomplishments to
48 to
sell.
43。
We wanted to highlight those, and we wanted to highlight we had real solutions or positive solutions.
Yeah, and one of the focuses that you had
Yeah.
mentioned was a focus on digital and social platforms.
Well, that's what young people listen to. That's what our voters listen to. We didn't ignore, obviously, the mainstream traditional media, but we really went after those young voters because those are the ones that are demanding change.
所以温西温东基本上都是 NDP Richmond 是 Conservative
leaving the
这一次
province.
看
We
一下
want to keep them
Burnaby 现在
home.
怎
We
么
want to
样
give them hope. We want to give them a prosperous future. So that was our focus this campaign.
And one thing I wanted to ask you about was
Burnaby
the
Center
sign
目
that Chip
前
Wilson
是
had outside his
N
home.
Con
Outside his $80
领
million
先
home,
Burnaby
a sign
Center 也
basically calling the
是
BC
NDP
communist.
Burnaby
Do you
East
think that helped or
也
hurt
是
your
NDP
campaign?
Ria Aurora 他是
I mean, I kept looking for it,
领
but I
先
couldn't
了
find it. I couldn't
1300
get
票
blown up，
所以
enough
反而
that we
Burnaby
did.
都是
I mean, these are-
NDP 的票
I mean,
仓
honestly, these are
包括
people
在
situations
Burnaby North
in a
现
society
在这个 Janet
an overdose tragedy
Rutledge
in a province with
也
rising
是
violent
领先
crime
的
in a province
所以
with
哇 Burnaby
economic
全都是 NDP Burnaby Metro Town
Okay,
是
thank you for joining us, Brad.
NDP
That's
Paul
Brad
Choi
Dubik, campaign strategist for BC Conservatives.
Burnaby New
Thank you very
West
much, our Mira
NDP
Baines, reporting from
Raj
Conservative headquarters in
Chauhan
Vancouver today. I want to show
对
you a map of
Burnaby
what it
跟
looks
温
like
哥华都是
across the province right now.
NDP 的选
You can
区
see there's a lot of blue. Of course, the caveat being people vote. Geography does not. Each riding, despite its size, is worth the same amount. But you can see the north of the province a wash away of blue. So much of the interior as well. There's a
所以
pocket
反而
of
内
small
内陆地
stronghold of
区
orange we're seeing right
都
there.
是蓝
Coastal
色
though,
哦
I mean, when you look at this map,
海
you
岸
just
地
see the
区反而都
ideological
是橘
division of
色
the
哇
province so far right
Yes.
now.
That's
Coastal
interesting.
areas turning towards the NDP, but so much of the interior and north of BC right
Why is
now,
that?
Conservative. This is what it looks like when we zero in on the southern interior. The outskirts, all blue, but it is a handful of ridings there in Kelowna that the NDP are currently holding. Let's throw it now back to Michelle and Dan for a closer look at
Yeah.
those races.
Thank you, Jason. You're absolutely right. When you look at that map, a lot of blue in that southern interior, except for that one little orange spot, and that's Kelowna Centre right now. The NDP candidate, Loyal Wooldridge, is leading just 49 votes ahead of the Conservative candidate there, Christina Lowen. 20 of 22 polls reporting there. In Kelowna Mission, there is a projected elected candidate. The Conservative candidate, Gavin Dew, longtime Liberal operative, ran for the BC United BC Liberal leadership, and he is now projected elected in that riding. At Kelowna Lake Country, Coldstream,
Kelowna 反正只要内陆地区都是蓝色的哦，
projected
蓝色，
elected.
然后海岸地区
Lake Country Coldstream.
Let's zip you over to Kamloops now. Kamloops Centre, Peter Millibar for the Conservatives, former BC United, projected elected. He was the incumbent, just over 1,900 votes over the NDP's Kamal Grewal, 20 of 23 polls reporting. Let's zip over to Kamloops North Thompson. Ward Stamer, projected elected, almost 6,000, more than 6,000 votes over the NDP's Maddie Glenn.
所以在内陆地区啊，蓝色都是大胜。
Fraser Nicola, Tony Luck leading by almost 1,000 votes over the NDP's Francine Joe, 24 of 40.
在 Vancouver， 反正都是 NDP， Burnaby 也是
Certainly
NDP
does,
的
Dan, Michelle, thank you very much. We have 78.1% polls reporting.
哇哦，78.1%的选票已经选出来了，所以最后的 22%、22%， 目前 NDP 还是领先5个席位。
Michelle mentioned Kelowna. We have our CBC reporter Chris Walker in
非常
Kelowna
现在
with Gavin Dew right now.
47 to 44 咯，小小调整。
Gavin Dew, Kelowna Mission, just declared elected in this riding. How you feeling?
Feeling really, really good about what's happened in our riding. Obviously,
Kinda
we're still
Adrian
watching
Dix
really closely to see what happens in our neighboring
elected.
ridings and across the province.
比第2名度很
So
高
far,，some
这个
close
Vancouver
races.
South
Super
Granville
still close.
也是
How do you like your
NDP， 哇，
chances
大
moving
赢
around
耶
the
，14000跟
I think
5800多
Kelowna
票
Centre is definitely going to be the biggest race in
Stra-
Kelowna. Obviously, with the independent
Strathcona
split,
也是
that seems
大
to
赢
have left things
，NDP 大
really,
赢，
really
哇
close.
，Vancouver 认识
Hopeful that we're
NDP
going to get
的
across the
票
line
仓
there in
，West End 也是大赢
and then I'll be
11000
watching to
对
see how things shake
4600
out
多票。
down in Penticton and Vernon. I haven't seen those
Yellowtown 比较接近，还没有确定。
This, of course, BC United stronghold
看起
for
来
years and
NDP
years
也是
and
领
years
先
before that.
大概
Socrat
快1000
stronghold
票
for。years and years and years. What are
哦，
your
这个很接
priorities
近
for the region
，Vernon
when you get to
1，
Victoria?
Yeah,
这是内陆
absolutely. I
地
think
区
what we're
嘛，
going to be
所以
doing is we're going to make
Conservative
sure that
那边
we
比较
first
strong。
consolidate our party. It's going to be
哇，
important
这
that
个
we make sure we get
Victoria
everyone
Beacon
working
Hill
together, we get everyone trained
反
up,
而
we
Green
get
Party
everyone
在领
prepared to
先，
go, so
第
we're
2
able
名
to。 be really, really effective, either as an opposition or, God willing, we're going to pull it across the line and form a government.
非
And
常的
that's then going to
close。
allow us to make sure we have a team that's really, really strong and that's really, really able to push for the priorities here and across the province.
Big night for you and your team. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
最后20% 啊，大家
That's Chris
你
Walker
觉得
in
谁会
Kelowna. Major update to bring to your
得
attention.
到这
One of the
次
ridings to watch for, the races to
majority
watch for,
seat
the battle of the incumbents. This
只
is
要拿到
Surrey,
47
Cloverdale,
票
two incumbents
，47个
for the
seats，
of
你
Mike
就是
Sarchuk and
majority。
Chris
所以现在
Shaw.
NDP 已经拿到47个席位，如果他能保持现在这40席位，
It's a close
他就
race
是
in
又会
Park
是成为
area.
主要政党。那如果
Because we
Conservative
don't
再上
have
来，
votes.
那没有到
We
达
don't
47
have
位，
votes.
就会
The
变由
votes you're
Green
seeing
Party 要
right
去
now, I
做
mean,
一
you
个
can
决
see
定。
there's fewer than 1,000 votes in the system. These are out of district votes. What we're being told, you're not going to believe this, folks. What we're being told is that the reason we aren't getting the tabulated votes in right now is because someone forgot a password.
Oh, no. You're having one of those. I thought you were going to say it was something weather related. This is a password issue.
Yeah.
Password.
I mean, maybe it's a
Okay.
two-step verification situation. I don't know. I mean, I don't
所以
know.
刚刚那个 Cloverdale 呢，他现在只有
These days,
report 了
but
300多个
that is
票呢，
stunning
因
to
为
be
有人
sure.
忘了密码
We're going to continue to watch
，so
that
他
story
进不
live.
Elections
去
BC say
，maybe
they're
去
working
开始
on the
看这个
problem
选
right
票
now.
换
Bypass that
And it's one of the
password.
reasons, of course,
Crazy.
why we can't make a decision on this race. Of course, with these so many ridings within 100 to 200 votes. And as
Oh,
I say, that is
wow.
one of the races to watch for of the evening, the battle of
所以很
incumbents.
多选区因为没有忘记密码，
Maybe it was their birthday.
怎么会这
Maybe
么好
not. I
笑？
don't know
看到
what
密
the
码就
password
只有一
is,
个人知
but
道吗
we're going to continue to watch that situation. I want to go back to our political watchers panel right now. Ginger Gosnell-Myers, I know you've been watching the impact and the results of Indigenous candidates. Can you bring us up to speed on that front?
Yes. It's always been a concern at how few Indigenous candidates we have in
现
our
在讲到是
political
原住民
elections.
的
And what we've
原住民
seen
的
is
那
that
个
we
候选人。
have 3 Indigenous candidates who are being elected. It's really positive to see. So we have Tamara Davidson, who is a Haida leader, who is in the lead on North Coast Haida Gwaii right now. She's well known in the North Coast. She's
大家
elected
看一下现在目
Haida
前的这
Council
个
member.
选票的情况。基本上我们看到 NDP 跟 Conservative percentage of total vote 很接近啊，真的跟当初 projected 一样啊，差的非常接近。现在基本上只差了 1.2%，total vote 其实也就差了21000呢，还蛮多，21000票，NDP 还是领先的。Yeah.
In the lead in Chilliwack Cultus Lake. And Alia is also very well known to her community. She's the daughter of well-known Judge Stephen Point. And of course, you know, it's fantastic to see some diversity within the BC Conservative Party as well. We know that she will bring a strong voice to the legislature.
All right, Ginger, thank you so much. And of course, we're going to be hearing from all of our political watchers throughout the evening. Right now, we're going to send it to Stephen Quinn with our Political Insider panel.
All right. Thank you very much, Jason. And Mo, I'm just going over this and I'm wondering how close we are to a call. How close do you think we are to a call?
Oh, we're a long ways away from a call.
You still?
Yeah.
Because of all of the number of tight races?
There's too many tight races, you know, and there's some strange ones too, like Wandafuka Malahat.
Yeah.
You know, where a seat that we should win. And I, you know, I'd like to think there's going to be a comeback there. But and then there's just too many races. For example, the Comox seat, which I think is about 100 votes across between the two parties.
Yeah, 他们主持人问他说：“你觉得我们大概已经差不多可以说做个决定吗？”然后说现在还不行，因为很多地方还是很接近。比如说像我们看到在 Comox 这个地区啊，我们看到是12464跟12266，差100多票而已。好 ，Surrey City Center 有 update 了，看一下。
Votes, 8 votes. You were making the case a little bit earlier, Jason, about the importance of getting out there to vote. Races like this
所以你说
demonstrate that.
一个 family 如果有8个人，
NDP leading the
就有可能改变这个选区。哇哦
very close in Surrey,
It's very close. 如果你找几个朋友去，8个人可能就会改变这个 riding 的。
Looks as if they're getting a few more votes in there. Do you think they've solved the?
Someone remembered their password, perhaps?
Oh, 我们现在又有变更呢 ，NDP 是46席 ，Conservative 来到
Here is what
45
we're
席。
seeing right now. The NDP leading or elected in 46 ridings. The Conservatives only trailing by 1 riding right now. They are sitting at 45. You got to think if that holds up, the Greens are going to be particularly happy with that. They are leading right now in 2 ridings, despite the fact that Sonia Furstenau has been defeated in Victoria Beacon Hill. Speaking of Victoria Beacon Hill,
如果
this is
今
what it
天
looks like on Vancouver Island.
就算
All
Conservative
3
领先，
colors represented right now.
但是没有到
You can
majority 的
see,
话，
what's really interesting
那
here
Green
is, well, really across the island,
很有可能又会跟
is the
NDP 再一次
NDP
联合政党。
stronghold. You see pockets
Yeah,
of blue though.
所以
The North
Conservative
Island, I believe that is at Esquimalt
基本
Falls
上
right
要
now. That may be
听到
showing
47
blue right
席
there. And of course,
Right.
North Saanich and the Islands, Adam Olson's previous seat, Rob Botterill right now there. Of course, strong green presence with Elizabeth Bay representing.
North Vancouver
I know she was
Bournemouth 领先了快要1倍，已经被选上了。Lonsdale、North Vancouver、Seymour 也是 NDP
Let's take a
的
closer look at some of those races with our results.
选区。
Michelle.
Yes, Jason. And as you said, all 3 colors on Vancouver Island, a lot of heavy campaigning on the island by the 3 leaders. Let's take a look at the share of the vote on
好近
Vancouver
哦，真的
Island.
是要
Right
到
now,
不
the
到最后一
NDP
刻没办法
44.6% of the vote, but yes, it is close. The
这也
Conservatives
是为什么这一次选举大
38.8%. The
家
Greens
反
here
而好
with a
像比较
presence
多、
of
比较踊跃去投票，比
13.6%
较踊跃
of the
的
vote.
去
And for
vocal
seat
他的
change, it's
想
going to
法，
be
因为真
interesting.
的
We
是一
look at the
个
NDP with a
确
minus
实
3, losing 3 right now.
几
or-
票这个可以
or
改
not
变整个
leading
选
in
区。我们
3,
看到 Surrey
behind
Center
in
那边
3,
才差
and the
8票而已，
Conservatives
目
leading
前来
in
讲，对。
3 ridings on Vancouver Island. They were hoping to make inroads there.
大家有没有
And
觉得
in
很紧
Courtney
张呢？
Comox, the Conservative candidate Brennan Day is leading.
哇，这个也是只差不到200票
The NDP incumbent Ronna Ray Leonard there.
198
23 of 25 polls reporting now. And to Wanda Fuka-Malahat, the conservative candidate,
哦
Marina
，conservative 目前领
Sakos,
先这个，刚刚之前
is
是很接
leading
近
by
的嘛。
322
Yeah,
votes
now it's
over
pretty
the
clear.
NDP candidate, Dana
300多
Lajeunesse,
票了。
20 of 24 polls reporting. And another on the island as well, more blue, North Island,
哇
Anna Kindi, a
，300多
physician
票。
there, running for the Conservatives, leading by 354 votes over the NDP incumbent, Michelle Babcock. And one more at the Cowichan Valley, and this is Sonia Furstenau's old riding, and the NDP candidate, Deborah Toporowski, is leading by 1,000 votes over the Conservative candidate, John Curry. Dan?
Let's stay overseas on Bank of Ireland.
好，大家有在
Latest
看
vote
直
side,
播
we are
的
projected
朋友
elect
们，帮我
NDP's Stephanie Higginson
按
with
个
an
赞。
almost 2,000 vote victory
我知
over
道
the
你们还
conservative
在这边，
Greg
也可以
Fink.
留个
Mid-Island
言。
Pacific Rim, Josie
有
Osborne,
什
the
么
incumbent
问
and
题想要
energy
讨论一
minister,
下？不管
projected
是
elected
房
with
市，我们现在有
2,400 votes.
Alan
Will
贷
lead
款经理
over
在这
Adam
边，
Hayduck
还有
of the
关于现
Conservatives.
在
Nanaimo
未来
Landsville,
4年 BC
local
省
councillor
的
George
未
Anderson
来就在
projected
今天晚
elected
上会
with
决
an
定，到底
almost
是由谁来
3,000
执
vote
政。
lead over Gwen O'Mahony, the former MLA in Chilliwack, and one more for you, Nanaimo Gabriola Island. Sheila Malcolmson, the incumbent and conservative, and cabinet minister, 4,200 vote lead over Dale Parker.
Well, I'm really glad that you left off there with Sheila Malcolmson. Thanks very much to Dan and to Michelle. We are going to take you to Nanaimo right now. Sheila Malcolmson.
好，大家如果想要看一下9月份房市的报告的话，你可以在下面链接中下载这个Snacks Fest 的市场报告。但我们2周后就会跟大家 update 10月的情况。目前市场的销售是会比9月来的高包括它现在已经降息3次，而且下周很有可能会降50个百分点。所以对买家来说都是一个可能是计划要等的差不多要进场的一个讯号，但是目前还没有一个准确的一个讯号，我们也不知道市场会怎么走。目前看起来应该11月通常会比较市场会相对比较慢一点，但因为今年有太多利息的变动，所以可能会有一些比较让人家比较 surprise 一点的情况出现吧。我不觉得现在目前是一个有一个很确切的方向，到底现在是一个卖家市场还是买家市场，还是双方还是在一个较劲的情况之下？对，因为卖家觉得现在降息了，那市场在往上，结果它反而没有往上，而买家又觉得说它现在利息还会再跌，那我是不是可以再等等？但基本上已经降了3次，这一个下礼拜如果又再降的话，从上周到就降了4次了，对。
Not enough affordable housing, all things we've been working on since 2017. But obviously, we all feel the need
好
to
接
do
近
more, and
40
that's
Conservative 突然领先了46 to 45 now.
we're going to be able to carry on that work.
哇
Sheila Malcolmson,
今天晚上真的非常刺
appreciate your
激。
time and congratulations again on
Green Party 的
elected
leader。
in Nanaimo.
We're going to send it now to Victoria, where Green leader Sonia Furstenau is about to address her supporters. You have to think a disappointing night for the BC leader.
Yeah， 很少 leader 会没有选上right？ Even though Green Party 确实是比较小的，
Well, it's not just my voice I lost tonight. It has been such an honor to be an MLA. It's not the outcome that we'd hoped for in Victoria Beacon Hill tonight, but I'm so proud of the campaign that we ran. We knew we were up against a steep hill. We were trying something bold and new. But the challenge was a little.
所以很有可能 Green Party 因为他没有选上，可能会换另外一个 leader。因为我不知道，如果你不是在一个选区里面做一个 MLA，你可以继续做 leader 吗？这我不是很知道。大家如果知道，可以留言让我知道一下。还说一定要换成一个已经是当选的一个
We attended every debate. We put forward a vision for this province and for this riding that I was very excited about. A vision centered on the well-being of people and communities, on nature, and on our public institutions. I want to start by thanking the best campaign manager I've ever had, Kadani Pitt Chambers. Gadani had an incredibly challenging task to run a campaign where the
OK，NDP 跟 Conservative 又换了互换，就是46-45哇，太接近了。看一下到底其他一些票仓那些 password 到底拿到了没有？
that
到底
really
是现在
was
有没有
community building at
更
its
多的
very
选票？
best. Gadani, thank you so much.
对，如果他 password 一晚上找不到，那大家是不是要等他到等晚？毕竟他选
Extraordinary
票这么接
team
近。
at the Fort Street office were
目前看
just
起来 Conservative 跟 NDP 还是
incredible,
差了
really.
2万多票
It was always such a joy to walk into the
，NDP 还
Fort
是领
Street
先2万
office
多票 ，But it's very
and to
close。
really experience the happiness and joy and love that was building. Darius was always at the door. Ronnie and Peter and Beatrice leading the way.
好像 password 就好了，因为刚刚他好像说了，我记得他是说这个 Cloverdale 这个选区是没有那个 password， 现在已经开的差不多了，他已经开 Conservative 已经现在目前是领先，所以不知道说是不是他这些 password 找到了，所以在那个票仓上面有做修改。
It's a strange time in politics when during an atmospheric river people come out and vote for a party that's denying the reality of climate change. But hey, this is where we're at.
Yeah， 因为基本上他们都说 Conservative 不是很支持这个气候变迁的，那他是说既然在一个这么特别的一个天气情况之下，然后反而大家去支持那个 Conservative， 因为
of the torch, and I am going to be there to mentor and guide and lead in any way that I can.
你不能说这个完全是 climate change， 这就是刚好下大雨。
There's so many thank yous to give, and it's so important to me to thank everybody. We do not get here alone. We are never alone. We're as the representatives and the elected people, there's always a team behind us. But first and foremost, to everybody who volunteered, who donated, who came and showed up, who gave us your support, thank you so much. None of this happens without you. To Maureen Balsillie, Adam Olson, and Molly McKay, the 3 people that led this campaign, a huge thank you to all 3 of you. Adam, I don't know where you are.
不过确实这个天气也是挺奇怪的，所以也不能完全排妙说跟现在气候变迁有没有关系，但就 very interesting， 刚好两个 party 的政见针对这个气候变迁是不一样的，所以不知道如果像 Conservative 如果上台之后，他们对现在这个 climate change 他们是会怎么去处理听说他们就会取消用纸吸管，所以就让我们用回塑胶吸管。所以现在大家如果你知道你们去不管是去买东西喝，都只有纸吸管，买奶茶、买咖啡，都是纸吸管，然后外面基本上也都没有袋子啦。你要买就只能买25 cent 那一种环保袋。如果 Conservative 上的时候，他说他会把这些都取消掉，重新 go back to 塑胶袋。所以不知道你们觉得到底这个塑胶袋跟这个塑胶吸管对环境污染或是气候变迁有多大的影响？应该有做一个 study。那以后就不会，因为有时候这种纸吸管真的会喝到最后那个吸管都烂掉了，然后就真的是没办法再喝，因为毕竟它纸做的。
The caucus team, Jojo, Laura, Emily, Rose, Katie.
所以今天晚上到底会不会跟大家预测的一样呢？非常的 close， 非常的 close。
It is. We were an oasis in that.
这边是大家 预测的结果。OK， 我们看到今天大家投票是说 conservative 77% 领先，当然没有那么多啦，现在目前也就是一个tie的局面。Right, so we'll see.
Your work is going to continue. There's so much more work to do. To Adam,
Said 他可能没有办法再继续
where are
立
you?
这个
Adam, I
Green
can't
Party。
see you. Adam. Adam, I love you so. My brother, my colleague, my friend, we've been through a lot in the last 7 years. I couldn't have done it without you. You've made me a better person. Adam and I are both going to enjoy very much spending time with our families who we miss. And I'm going to enjoy spending time with my new grandchild who's arriving in a month.
有一个
Speaking of family,
孙子或孙女了，刚刚
family
出
is
生
the。most important thing to me. And if you could come up, my husband plays. Where are you, Blaze?
啊，接近46跟45。
Eleanor, Nicholas, Charlotte, Mark, Julie.
What's gonna
Rhea,
happen
Brennan,
tonight?
Mom. Brennan.
随时都有可能会反转，因为目前看起来呢，1% 的 difference 的地区呢，有4个sorry， 有6个地区1% 的差异而已，全部都是只有一个 NDP 的选区，其他都是 conservative， 所以这1% 如果它一旋转，就会变成是 NDP 了，所以这非常的 close。
The Cowichan Valley, knowing that the boundaries were changed as well. She did cite family when speaking to the media afterwards as to wanting to be closer to family in Victoria. She mentioned a grandchild on the way. We knew it was a political risk, though, for her to come against what is an NDP stronghold. You do have to wonder how BC Green supporters are feeling, though. A bittersweet night to see Sonia first now lose that riding, and yet as the race stands right now, holding the balance of power. We'll show you why.
Richmond Bridgeport, Teresa Watt, Pang Chen 在 Richmond Center 已经 confirmed 了。
We'll take a look at the percent overall so far right now. 8.3%.
Richmond Queensboro,
A lot of
Steve
negative integers
Cooner,
on the board there,
yeah.
but of course, the two ridings that matter right now
Steve Cooner,
that
没有
allow
确定
the
哦。
BC Greens to hold the balance of power. Here is the first one.
Richmond
West Vancouver
Steventon.
Sea to Sky, Jeremy Valeriot. This was a nail biter 4 years ago. And of course, third time's a charm for Jeremy Valeriot. We're not able to call this race yet. By the way, there's still, you can see only a lead of 588 votes that he's leading with.
He lost by 60 votes last election to Jordan Sturdy.
And quite honestly, you have to wonder what's going through his mind because, again, as I say, this vote very much still active against the Conservatives, Yuri Fulmore. Meanwhile, if we look at the other result, this is Rob Botterill. We saw Adam Olsen on stage with Sonia.
Green Party 领先。
Of course, that is the riding of Adam Olsen, who decided not to run against Saanich North and the Islands. A bit of a healthier lead here for Rob Botterill over the NDP's Sarah Riddle. 1,204 votes. And last thought I'll make right now about the Greens so far, I know we're getting a reaction from our panel, is if either of those candidates carry their
Surrey Center 差12票。
have to
Surrey City Center 差12票，哇，一直都咬得很紧。Kelowna 差29票，哇哦。
Okay, and look at these races.
随时都可能会 switch 哦 ，That's too
Center right now
close.
only 12 votes separate the Conservatives from the NDP.
Wow.
Kelowna Centre is another 29 votes separating Conservatives and NDP. Wandafuka Malahat, 115 votes. Surrey Guildford, 121. And Columbia River Revelstoke, 155. If those tight races continue into the evening, just a reminder that if there are fewer than 100 votes that separate the two parties, that is an automatic recount.
And it's such a
所以如果
close
是
vote difference,
100 个
of course,
票
but we
的
should
差
also
异
tell
以
you
下，
that
他们就会
84% of
要
polls are
重新
now
重
reporting.
新
So
选，
yes,
重新再
super close
再
votes
count
could
一次，
switch,
再
and that
计
could
票一
change
次
the entire game. But as we
automatically，
tick
所以
closer
Surrey
and
Center 很有
closer
可
to
能啊，
that
才差8 票
2%
而已。
mark, those results coming
Yeah,
closer
see
and
Vancouver
closer to the
Fraserview
ballot,
也
as well.
是
Let's take a closer
NDP 哦，
look
所以
at
Fraserview
some
那
of the
边也是
ridings
比
to watch
较
for. Dan and Michelle
相
brings
对
us to speak
是
with
所谓
us.
温东的
What did
Shaughnessy
Miss
比较
Piggy say?
多
Well, you wanted
比较多
excitement.
house 比较
You've
多
got
比
it
较
tonight.
多有钱，
Coquitlam
也不是有钱，
Burke
就比较
Melton
多这
Jody
种
Wiggins, the incumbent,
相
leading by
对
309 votes for the NDP
household 比
over
较
Stephen Froelich,
收入比较高的区。
10,103 votes, 17 of 19 polls reporting. This is close. And Coquitlam Millardville, Jennifer Blatherwick projected elected with a 2,600 vote lead over Hamid Najafi of the Conservatives.
My kids would appreciate that Miss Piggy reference. Let's head to Port Moody, Burquitlam, and the NDP
Port
candidate
Moody,
Rick
NDP
Blumack was fighting for a third term.
选
It
上
looks
了。
like he's going back. He is projected elected in Port Moody, Burquitlam, and in
好，
Port
那个
Coquitlam,
Bill， 你
the
的选
NDP
区
candidate,
Port Coquitlam，
veteran
这个
politician and
Keenan
MLA
下
Mike
次真的
Farnworth
是要打起
is
精神，不
projected
然
elected there. Port
真的是
Coquitlam,
被这个
22,
麦看见
24
麦就很
polls
有精
reporting.
神。
And Mike
Keenan
Farnworth
看起来
looks
就
like he's
有点
going
真
back
的
to
是
the
想睡
legislature.
觉的感觉。
All right, still so much to watch for, of course. I'll bring you up to speed right now. The Conservatives currently leading or elected in 46 ridings. The NDP right now in 45, and the Greens holding that all-important
谁会
balance
先
of
到
power right now
47个
with
seats？
two ridings.
太
It has
气
been going back and forth all evening. This is a true nail biter. Let's take you to Conservative headquarters now at the Rocky Mountaineer Station, where Mira Baines is standing by. Mira?
I don't know about you, but I'm getting
大家在看这个直播的朋友们，想问一下，你们都是在电视上看，还是你们是在手机或是在 iPad？ 有个人让我知道一下。
MLA, a former BC Liberal MLA for what was called Vancouver Falls Creek. Now the riding is called Vancouver Yaletown. And so Sam Sullivan joins me here at BC Conservative election night headquarters. So Sam, are you getting the same sorts of feelings that this might be playing out like 2017 did, that election?
Yeah, I have to keep jump-starting my heart. It's just back and forth, and it is very eerie. Recollections of 2017 and how close that was.
You were with the BC Liberals at the time, and now here you are at the BC Conservatives. Could you have imagined this? And what made you join the BC Conservatives here?
Well, I'm a big fan of John Rustad. I worked with him as a caucus member, and he was always so good at standing up for what he believes in.
谢谢 Ability N， 在手机上面看，谢谢。
He's really stayed true to himself, and also was very strategic about how he did it. So.
手机上面画面应该还可以吧？应该是会不会太小那个荧幕？还是说你只有听声音而已？如果说手机的 screen 可能没有那么大，因为我是用电脑在看。
Well, we have a real serious issue with the drugs and the public disorder, and you know.
谢谢 Jack， 只看 Ken， 哎，那我就把这个电视关掉好了，我们就直接听我讲。这么幽默，谢谢你。听说那个 Lenny 怎么样？那边下大雨有没有淹水？听说 Surrey 那边蛮多地方都淹水。
I'm gonna accept whatever it is, but I'm hoping for the best.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us, Sam.
好 ，Alan 还在这 iPad。
Mira Baines, thank
谢
you
谢
very
谢
much
谢。
for that.
哎 ，Worcester 那边
What we
有
wanna do now is take
下大
you
雨吗？
into
那
the
边
riding
路况怎么
of
样？
Surrey
上去的话会不会？
We were talking
应该
about
也
very tight
那边应该
races.
也。
Well, it looks as if the floodgates
因为我看到
have
像
opened.
西温都有一些
Not
土石
talking
流，
atmospheric
所以那
river
边
floodgates. I'm talking
什么
about
情况？
finally somebody found the password to at Elections BC to allow us to see those votes that were
OK。
trickling in earlier here on
We got a new Surrey Cloverdale， 这就刚刚那个 passport 坏掉的地方，对，所以他已经找到密码了，现在蓝色领先473票。
right now with Pat McCutcheon of the Greens behind at 1,000 votes.
All right, Gloria, thank you very much. Let's turn back to our political watchers panel now. Mo, Amira, I'd love to start with you. We just watched a very emotional concession speech by Green Party leader Sonia Furstenau.
NDP 现在又领先了46票对45票。
She had it in the BC legislature, but I would add that she had a really tough run in the BC legislature. You have to remember, a week after she became leader of the BC Greens, the BC NDP called a snap election in 2020. And suddenly she went from holding the balance of power to now becoming leader, and no one in the BC NDP caucus who she was working with in her first term actually wanted to talk to her anymore. So I think she had a really tough go in the BC legislature. I would say that it's going to be really interesting to see where the Greens go from here, because they may be in a situation where, yes, they've lost Adam Olsen and Sonia Furstenau, but they still have 2 seats in the BC legislature without a leader. And while Sonia was very strong in being a progressive voice on a lot of issues where I think progressives were underrepresented, issues like
所以他说应该这个 Sonia 绿党的这个leader 因为没有选上，可能就没有办法再继续做这个党的领导人。剩下这2个席次的人就必须要选一个出来做党的领导。
Certainly in this last term, and so hopefully they can find leadership, a new board, to be able to move forward and become a much more dominant party.
Shachi, of course, we operate under a first-past-the-post voting system, which means you don't necessarily have to have the majority of votes to ultimately form government, which very well might be the case for the Conservatives right now. We're seeing they have 43% of the vote share. What do you make of that?
Yeah, stranger things have happened. Like, they actually have happened in BC politics. We've seen, I think, what was it, 1996, we saw this result and the same
So 这个就是一个 为什么他们说 independent 会影响到这一次大选的一个情况。基本上 it happens at Richmond Stephenson。我们看到在这个选区非常的接近 ，right？ sorry， 这边 sorry， 这个是Richmond Stephenson。Kelly Greenan 46.3%， Michelle Molax 40%，Jackie Lee Independent 10%。So 他 split out 这个票从 这2个人，当然不知道他的票是哪一个票仓来的。这一个人如果他今天没有出来，会是比较 interesting。因为这2个票差是在 10% 以内。So 没有办法，因为他们有些之前是 liberal 的，然后出来选了，剩下包括像在 Richmond Center 这个就差很多嘛，那个差了10几个%。Yeah. Okay, let's go back.
I see that. Jared, let me ask you as well. I think there was a real belief that we could see independents playing a major role tonight. Of course,
yeah, 他也说了 independents
winning any of the
占了很
ridings.
多。
Does that surprise you?
I would like to think it was surprising, but I'm actually not, because we are seeing such an overwhelming amount of conservatives turning out in this election. And the independents really aren't making a dent in any of the ridings where we might have seen some rise to the top and make it through to the finish line. I think it was really difficult for them to put down their campaigns because of how prepared they were to run under the
下雨还是很多人，
and of
对
course
啊
it's heartbreaking for
可
all
是
of
像
them.
Whistler， 我觉得这个天气真的要小心一点，因为现在很多雨下太多，很有可能会有那些 mudslide。对，还是要开车的时候要小心。我们最好是等到比较 stable 一点再下载。目前好像没有听到有什么情况在 Sea to Sky 那边。
That's a great point, and of course, in a race this close, every vote matters.
哇
in some of those ridings.
到底是
Gloria, I
还要
should
开
also
多
point
久
out our stat game
Very low.
poor compared to our political.
Do you need help? Should we send help?
You're not that far from us. Just
I
chuck
can
us a
walk it
few.
over.
I think we're okay. Dan
好，我
Durrett
们看
and
到这
Michelle
边
Elliott are standing by. They've got more
小
results.
水
No
狗
snacks,
汪汪
but you've got
汪，
some
有
results.
最终结果了
That's
吗
right.
？NDP 赢了吗？
Shachi.
现在
We're happy
NDP
to
是
take
领
it.
先一个
Look, if
席
you look
次，
at
但还
at
没
the
有
bottom of
结
your
果。
screen,
可能
46
还
for the
要
NDP, 45 for the Conservatives. So
20
as you
分
said,
钟，我
Jason,
觉
if you
得
didn't think your vote mattered,
没
so
有
let's take a look
目
at
前 NDP 是
how
领
they can
先
get
的，
to that
对，
47,
我
that magic
们
number
就
47.
静
Some of the
等
ridings
消
right now that are
息
so
吧。
tight, they're too close to call at this point. Some of these just under 200
哦，这
votes
个是
in
另外一个
between.
席
In
次。
Wanda
哎，
Fuga
刚刚那个
Malahat,
Marina
the
是领
NDP
先，现在
candidate
哇，
Dana
你
Lajunes
看
is
一下
leading
就
by
换掉了。
118
That's
votes
so
right
close.
now over Marina Sapochnikov, the conservative candidate there.
刚刚是
Just
那个
under,
Marina 领先
just over 110 votes is the difference there. In Columbia River Revelstoke, the conservative candidate Scott McInnes leading by 242 votes now over the NDP candidate Andrea Dunlop. Again, we're looking at where they could go, to where are the ridings where they could try to hit that 47 number. In Courtney Comox over on the island, the conservative candidate Brennan Day leading by just over 200 votes over the NDP incumbent Ronna Ray Leonard.
Let's keep the train rolling. Surrey City Centre, Amna Shah with a 13-vote lead over Zishan Walla of the Conservatives. 18 of 20 polls reporting, coming down to the nitty-gritty there. Surrey Guildford, Hanveer Singh Randhawa with a 113-vote lead for the Conservatives over incumbent Gary Begg. 17 of 19 polls reporting. And one more for you. Kelowna Centre, Christina Lowen with a 52-vote lead over Loyal. Woldridge, 20 of 22 polls reporting.
And this is flipped throughout the night too. We've been
Correct.
watching that.
Wow.
Wow.
Incredible stuff. I mean, for political
都
watchers,
好接近哦，
this is the Super Bowl.
right?
This is the Grey Cup. Let's keep it candid.
It's the Grey
And it's
Cup.
a tie game going into the fourth quarter. Imagine if you are at any of those headquarters for the supporters watching this with bated breath. Well, we'll take you to one of those spots right now. Our Katie DeRosa is live now at the NDP headquarters in Vancouver.
So it's a nervous energy here. People have drinks. People are
就
wearing
是
orange.
NDP
I
的
think people are feeling hopeful, but no
headquarter
victory
from
yet.
the
One person who
headquarters
is celebrating a victory is Spencer Shander Herbert. He's the
就
MLA for Vancouver West End who's been reelected.
他的办
Spencer,
公室吧，他
what
们
are you
的
feeling
领导
tonight
办
with
公
the
室
results so close?
You know, it's
NDP
too
的
close
那
to
个
call, but I'm feeling great with the campaign we put in Vancouver. Great support, great results.
campaign 就是这个，
Thank everybody who showed up.
我收到这
made
个
their voice
flyer，
heard and made a difference, whether it's for renters or for folks who care about the climate, who care about the arts, who care about a community that works for everybody. That's what we're trying to build in Vancouver West End and in Vancouver, and I guess we'll see what the results hold.
我差一个
they're
位，
fighting for everybody.
哇，
Do you think we'll see recounts with some of the seats so
I think
close?
when you look at it, it's too close to call, and I think I remember back to 2017 where we really didn't know for a week, 2 weeks, and then we figured out who the government was. But it may come to that. I certainly.
The Richmond Center 啊，Richmond 的选区里面啊，就是只有 Stephen 那边是目前是 NDP 选到的，
Anything you would have done
在
differently in this
Richmond 的
campaign?
Queensboro、Richmond、
He said he
Bridgeport
left it all on the table. Do you feel like the party?
都是
You give it your best. You talk to
conservative。
people as best you can. You share what you're doing for them, and you listen to them, and you try your best on their behalf. And in the end, they
而且其
decide.
他
And
区的选
I
票
respect the
差
voters.
异
I
都还
respect our
都还
people
蛮
in
大的，
BC, and I love this province. And I think, regardless of if you voted Conservative or NDP or
我觉得
Independent,
就是这几个
we have
区
an obligation to work for you.
华
Regardless
人
of
相
who
对
goes
还
in
是比较
government,
多
we've got to have your back. And that's
Stephen
something
那
that
边
I
就比较
always give.
mix，所以 that's why 那个那边的选票会这么的接近，
Although of course I support the NDP.
就差
We
了
have
600
Spencer
票，
Shander Herbert and
差了不
back
到
to you.
Thank
差
you
了
very
3%
much, Katie
而已，
DeRosa
哇。
at NDP headquarters in Vancouver tonight. And we've been talking about the number of areas that are battleground zones for this election. And one of them is Richmond. Let's take you there now with
Richmond
Karen Larson. Karen?
Yeah, thanks, Gloria. I am here at the Richmond Sheraton Airport Hotel. It is a happy room in Richmond. 3 of the 4 seats look like they are going to the Conservatives, and one for sure, Richmond Bridgeport re-elected MLA Teresa Watt. Teresa, a resounding victory for you in Richmond Bridgeport. How did you do it?
Actually, every election I just work hard, and I've been quite, I would say, they're quite popular among my constituents because they all know that I joined this, I don't call it a career, it's my mission. Because I'm an immigrant, even though I've been here for 35 years, many of the people
35 来
younger
这边
than
35
me
年
for
了。
35 years. But I feel that I want to raise
他说他是来一个
students
任务，
and
不是
want to
他的一
encourage them
个
to get more involved
职业。
in politics. I think once we emigrate to a new country, we should try to get more, involved and not to be separated from the so-called mainstream community. That's why 12 years ago when Christy Clark, somebody asked me to run for politics, I right away say yes, because my ideology aligned with the BC Liberal and then later on BC United. Yeah.
Look, I have to ask you, as someone who crossed the floor from BC United to the BC Conservatives, if the Conservatives are able to form government, are you expecting a cabinet position?
I think always any cabinet decision is really up to the leader, the premier. None of us should have any say into that. It's really up to our leader to decide who is in the cabinet. Yeah.
What part of the Conservative message resonated with the citizens of Richmond this time around?
Especially my riding has about 70% Asian immigrants. I find that the drug policy resonates with many of them. You have to understand the culture of the Chinese Canadian, because the Opium War back in the old days when Britain attacked China, there came an Opium War, and that's why Chinese Canadians are very scared of the negative impact of the drugs on their children. And because of the
所以他问他说，到 conservative 什么样的策略吸引你？
and that's why this one really resonate well.
基本
And
上他
another
说他
one
的
is
选
the
区
healthcare
70% 都
economy.
是
My
移民来的
riding
人，
comprised of the
大部分
downtown
都是
of
对这个
Richmond,
毒品
and
甚
many
至
small
drugs
business are
有比
having
较
trouble. Yeah.
多的
Congratulations to you again, Teresa.
Yeah, thank you.
因为毕竟之前有经历过这个
Darren, thank you
毒品的
very
战争
much. And let's catch you up to speed
英
right now
国
with where
跟
we're at. The NDP currently leading or elected in 46 ridings, the Conservatives in 45, and the Greens in 2. This is what the map looks like if you're joining us through our visual platforms right now. And if you're tuned into Radio 1, let me tell you, a lot of blue in the north of the province.
A lot of blue.
A lot
Blue
of
超
blue
大
as well in the interior, but
The
it is
area
coastal
超大，跟
communities that are holding it down
跟
for
那
the
个橘色
NDP.
的
It's
来
going to be an
比，
interesting
跟它每一
talking
个
point
选
for us
区
going
可能
forward
人
to
数都
look
不
at the
是很
ideological
多，然后
differences
都
it splits
大的选区。
geographically in British Columbia.
所以你
We
这
just
种要
heard
去
from
敲门，要
Richmond
去拜
riding, of
访也
course,
很
one
累，
of
因
the
为你选区
battlegrounds
真
to
的太
watch
大
for. The
了，你
other,
要
Gloria and
一
Lower
户一
Mainland,
户敲门。
Surrey, of course. Let me show you what it looks like in Surrey. This map of
Surrey大
of
家
how so
处理的
many
情
ridings
况。
there have been closely contested so far. You can just see as we zoom in, the outskirts rather, dominated by a lot of Conservatives, the MDP holding a handful of seats in those ridings. We'll take you now to Mira Baines, who is joining us from Conservative headquarters.
A lot of people here on pins and needles. And like you mentioned, there are a lot of ridings in Surrey up for grabs. There's 10. And many analysts have said that the path to victory in this election is by really seizing on some of those voter
现在看起
opportunities
来
in
NDP 的
Surrey.
选
And
票跟
I'm joined
Conservative
here
还
by
是差了2万
former
块，差
Surrey
2万 块，
Mayor
还
Linda
是差2
Hutner,
万票。
who came out of retirement to run in Surrey
NDP 这
Serpentine
种票
River.
数来讲
Hi,
还是
Linda,
领
thank you
先
so
的，
much for joining
包括
me.
甚至在 Party 基林这边也是，但谁会先 hit 到这个47个席位，
retirement to
非
run
常
for the
非常
BC
的
Conservative.
紧张
Because I
，very
think that we
close。
need change in this province. And I'm so excited to see where we are and we're heading, hopefully, to a victory tonight.
And you're leading in this poll for Surrey Serpentine River. And I'm wondering, what made the difference? What do you think made the difference in that riding? This is a new riding that was carved after a review of the electoral boundaries.
所以目前在所有选区里面有1% 以内的差异的话呢，总共是有1、2、3、5个区域，其中有3个是 Conservative 领先，2个是 NDP 领先，所以其实1% 以内差异大概比较平均。但5个% 差异的话，目前来讲的话，看起来还是很多都是5个% 差异。哦，所以很可能很容易就会翻，就会 change。
The BC Conservatives using the Conservative Party name on the ballot, causing confusion amongst voters who might have mixed up the BC Conservative Party with the federal Conservatives when they were voting. Do you think that had something to do with how well we're seeing the Conservatives perform tonight?
No, I think that was a pig in a poke. I think that was something that the opposition used because they were grasping and a little bit nervous about where they were in terms of their polling.
Now, how do you feel about going to Victoria? Will you be looking for a cabinet post? You're somebody with political experience, you know, and you're running for a party that had a lot of political newbies.
A lot of newbies. Actually, I'm just there to serve in whatever capacity that turns out to be. I hope to make a difference, especially for my riding and for the Surrey residents.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me, Linda. Back to the studio.
Thanks very much, Mira. It's so interesting to hear from Linda Hepner because I wanted change. And clearly, a large number of British Columbians agree with her for that call for change. Take a look again at where the standings are right now. We haven't had a lot of movement in the last little while. The NDP leading in 46 ridings across the province.
现在基本上是一个僵持的状态，46到45，也有很多低于100票的会需要重新看。比我预料中的僵持了很多，因为当初他基本上说1个小时之内可能就会，因为如果说一个 party 明显就是 leading 的话，当然快就会决定，但因为他咬得很近，所以不知道这个漫长的夜会开到什么时候，所以我大概直播到10点钟，我们看一下结果怎么样，然后接下来的话就之后在post 里面跟大家 update。因为我觉得在半个小时之内，可能也不见得可以完全知道，因为还蛮多地方都非常接近。
Let's go to Burnaby, beautiful Burnaby, and this
Burnaby 完全是 NDP
normally would win. So in Burnaby, New Westminster, the NDP vote share is at 55%. The Conservatives trailing at 38.6%. Greens at 4.5%. Unaffiliated or other at 1.8%. We also have, I don't know if we have seat change or if we have a result. Let's see what comes up. Riding results. Burnaby South Metro Town, we're projecting elected the NDP's Paul Choi with a 1,100 vote win over Han Lee, the Conservative, 16 of 18 polls reporting. Also, another riding, Burnaby East, Rhea Aurora, projected elected 20,000 vote victory over Simon Chandler of the Conservatives, 17 of 19 polls reporting. And Burnaby North, the incumbent Janet Routledge, projected elected with a 1,300 vote lead over the Conservatives.
都算是赢得蛮多的Burnaby 这几个区。
Burnaby area seats that the NDP have felt a little bit safe in, and so they're relying on that for these numbers. Burnaby Center and Kang, the NDP
基本上温哥华跟 Burnaby 都是橘色的选场 ，Richmond 是现在今年换成是蓝色的。我觉得跟他之前要盖这个注射屋有很大的关系，跟 supported housing。
The former mental health minister Jennifer Whiteside is projected elected in New Westminster, Coquitlam.
Thanks very much to Michelle and Dan. Let's take you back to NDP headquarters right now, where Katie DeRosa is standing by with Adrian Dix.
Yeah, so healthcare was a huge issue in this election. We saw the NDP promise a new hospital tower in Nanaimo. The Conservatives promised.
大家有没有预料到这个 race 会这么接近？现在基本上处于一个僵持的状态，已经超级 close 啊！所以 Green Party 有可能又会是这一次的 ，Yeah， 但 Green Party 就会跟 NDP 就是联合了，因为他们之前就是这样做嘛，不知道我
that we had the best performance of any jurisdiction in the pandemic. There have been real challenges. We've added 550,000 people to our province on MSP in the last 3 years, and there have been some challenges. On the other hand, more family doctors, more nurses, more health sciences professionals, more healthcare workers, record numbers joining our healthcare system in the last 2 years show the promise for the future. In terms of the issue, most of the polls showed that the NDP had was better appreciated on healthcare than the other parties. But I think overall, what we're seeing is an extremely close election, and you see that in the numbers tonight. And we're obviously, I just say this about the performance of the NDP: 45%, one of the best performances in the party's history. And we're just hopeful that the final few seats will land in our column.
Was the performance good enough, though? If it's so close, do you think people were upset about the healthcare not being able to get a family doctor, ERs closing? Like, did the NDP perform well enough to sway voters?
Yeah, I think we added, as you know, about 835 family doctors in the last year. They're still adding patients, so I think patients will see the impact of that much more in the next year than in the last year, which might have an effect on the election. There's no question. But look, this is a close election. This is our third election.
现在都没有任何的 update 了。等一下可能我就把直播放着然后大家还是可以看。那我先去要那个让小孩先去睡，比较晚现在。
Showed a lot of support as well as a two-party system.
先在这边放着一下。
We're reliving the night of 2017, which I think we were both there for.
Do you worry the NDP is going to find itself in opposition after this night?
Oh, I think we should count the votes. You know, I think it's so close right now that drawing conclusions about what the final result is when it's down to a handful of votes in different seats. Let's see what the results are. There are some votes that are counted after tonight as well. So let's let the voters decide, and then we can judge from there.
There we have Adrian Dix, and he's confident. And back to you.
All right, Katie, thank you very much. Let's talk about the final vote that Adrian Dix mentioned there, because if you've been with us since the polls closed at 8 o'clock, an hour 45 minutes in, you'll have noticed in the beginning we got a lot of votes coming our way and a lot of riding changes. The fact that at this point in the evening, we're still not able to make a projection in terms of what type of government we might see, who is in power, speaks truly to just how close some of these races are, with just a handful of polls remaining. Like take, for example, Surrey City Centre, 33 votes separate the NDP lead from the Conservatives. Wanda Fuca Malahat, 43 votes separate the NDP lead to the Conservatives. So yeah, we got results early, but it really does feel, Gloria, like it's coming down to the wire.
No, it's so true. And it was interesting to hear Adrian Dix talking about what's unfolding tonight in British Columbia, reflecting broader trends, broader global political trends. Stephen Quinn, over to you and your panel.
Thank you very much. And once again, Mosa Hoda's got his eyes on Surrey, trying to figure out what the heck is going on there and when we might get some answers. Mo.
Well, we're going to get answers when all the votes are counted. That's what's going to happen here tonight. There's two seats in Surrey, Surrey Centre and Surrey Guildford. Surrey Guildford, we're trailing only by 116 votes. There are a couple of other seats that are very much in play, the one in Courtenay and the one in Maple Ridge. And funny enough, the one in Kelowna. All of these are seats that we're trailing in, but we're well within 100 votes of being able to capture them. We need to capture one, maybe two of those to get across the majority to majority tally. So again, I think it's just going to come right down to the final vote being counted. It's that close.
And Rachel, what are you thinking about how close it is right now? I mean, you've got to be impressed with what the Conservatives have managed to do tonight, obviously.
Oh, yeah. I mean, going from no seats elected ever to 45, hopefully 47 plus by the end of the night. But even things like we just talked about off air, the island is something amazing. As BC United, BC Liberals, we tried to get those ridings, and federally, I know the Conservatives are watching them very closely. So for me to see North Island and Comox that we're winning there right now is just amazing. And kudos to John Rustad on that.
So are you suggesting that there might be something behind changing your name from Liberals to Conservatives then?
There's definitely something behind it for sure. I mean, we're seeing it tonight, and I think it'll be interesting to see where the party goes from here in terms of alignment with the federal party.
And Mo, we have seen the Greens on the board leading in two ridings right now, but we have not seen one elected. What are you thinking?
Oh, I'm Pete. That's Mo.
Did I just say Mo? I'm looking at my gosh. I'm sorry. It's late.
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's not even that late, actually.
I mean, you know, obviously,
my apologies.
For you,
that's
it's
okay.
late.
Yes.
You know, obviously, super disappointing to see Sonia, but what a gracious speech. And I think she exemplified real leadership.
Yes.
And how she carried herself in this campaign. You know, as it stands now, I think we're seeing, you know, two Greens on the board. It's looking, I understand in West Van Sea to Sky, they're pretty much assuming that it's a done deal, and certainly in Saanich North and the Islands, also looking pretty good. So it again, shades of 2017. I think we'll see the Greens are still sticking around and possibly forming the balance of power in any future scenario. Who knows?
We see
that Mo guy is really insightful.
He is, isn't he? Well, we've got another Mo down there, so I may as well just call everybody
The
Mo.
night of Mo.
I was waiting for 3 more, and we'd have 5 guys named Mo, but that would be too much. And we talked as well a little bit about the possibility of recounts here, because we do see things so close. And so I think a judicial recount is triggered by, I was just reading it from Elections BC, 1/500th of the total number of votes.
Right.
If that's what's separating the 2 top candidates, then a judicial recount automatically takes
Yeah,
place.
that's automatic. And a candidate that loses by 100 votes or less can also request a recount. So we may well be looking at those recounts, and it might be a few days before we actually know the final outcome of this election.
Everybody is talking about 2017 right now. Are we seeing any? The only difference for me is I was sitting over there in 2017, and it was I think you may have, yes, I think you were there actually. What have we? I mean, how similar is it for all of you?
Well, for me, it's similar, for sure. And you know, if this stays as it is, we're going to get into a lot of discussions about the role of the lieutenant governor, who goes to ask for a chance, what the speaker, where the speaker of the legislature comes from. So it's going to be deja vu all over again. Now we're one seat short. In that regard. So if we pick out one more, then that goes for naught.
Right. And you're hoping that obviously doesn't happen, Rachel.
I am looking to a strong majority Conservative government in this province. I was in Ontario in 2017. So for me, this is like, okay, now I get my shot at watching this exciting race. And the difference was, I think there's a lot of seats that were talking from the 2020 campaign. There's a lot of seats that we wanted, didn't win or lost, that we're now picking up. And that's super exciting.
You didn't even have to campaign on a buck of beer either. So
right.
Good on you.
Exactly.
All right. Back to the desk now.
All right, Stephen, thank you. There you go. Mo problems.
Oh no.
I should be nowhere near a microphone right now. So let's bring in Catherine Cullen, instead the host of The House on CBC Radio 1. Catherine, when you take a look at the results we're seeing right now right across the province, does this speak to you federally as well to some extent?
I mean, I think it's really interesting. You can read this as a divided electorate. You can read it as an uncertain electorate. Obviously, we're still waiting to see how this is all going to play out. For the NDP, the BC government is a crown jewel, right? It shows people across the country that the NDP can lead, they can govern. So federally, the NDP watching this really closely, hoping they can pull it out of the bag. For the Conservatives, I mean, again, they kind of coming out of nowhere. I know the party's been around for a long time, but John Rustad has done a lot of work. So it does speak to the fact that there is a strong change sentiment. The question is how strong. We're still looking at how that's going to play out. And again, for the federal Liberals, David Eby has been able to some extent push back that anti-incumbent sentiment. Of course, the end result, who forms government, that's really what's going to matter here. But I think each party is still going to be chomping its fingernails in Ottawa to get a sense of what this really means for them. And I would say as well, one other thing, one federal person said to me, whether it's provincial or whether it's federal, elections are decided in the suburbs. So all this interest in what's going to happen in Surrey, you know, that is a message that carries across the country.
We often talk about how wild the West is, how wild the politics in BC are. What do you think folks across the country are thinking watching this?
Well, I don't have to think. I'm getting messages from my friends back home who are going, oh my goodness, this is incredible. I mean, anytime, that moment earlier in the night where we had an absolute tie.
Yes.
And so just outstanding. There's a lot of drama here. And we have to feel too, like, for the people who are running, right? For the people who have taken time out of their lives, who are still waiting tonight to see what this means for them. It's an incredible sort of individual human drama, and the consequences for BC are going to be big. There are three, if you count the Greens, very different visions for the province here. So the stakes are high, and there's still a lot of night left.
So great to get your insight, Catherine Cullen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, it's good to have you here with us. Speaking of the results in those close races and beyond, back to Dan and Michelle for more results.
Yeah, and she put it there. Catherine Cullen put it so well. The human drama of this, a lot of candidates in these very tight ridings are just on the edge of their seats, probably also losing some nails right now. Let's go to Kelowna Centre, where it is incredibly tight. Christina Lowen, the Conservative candidate, is leading by 124 votes over the NDP candidate, Loyal Wooldridge. 124 votes. But if you also look at the non-affiliated former BC United candidate there, he looks like he may be taking away some of those votes. He had a couple of hundred there. In Courtney Comox, the Conservative candidate Brennan Day leading by just 234 votes over the NDP candidate Ronna Ray Leonard, who is the incumbent there. But if you look at the Green candidate Arzina Hamir, she's got almost 7,000 votes. So those are the votes that are blocking the NDP from leading and potentially getting elected in Courtney Comox. So watching these very closely.
Let's jump to Vernon Lumley, where Harwinder Sandhu, the incumbent, leading by 388 votes over Dennis Giesbrecht of the Conservatives. Kevin Acton, though, 4,193 votes, non-affiliated. He was looking to be a BC United MLA or Conservative. That did not happen for him. 24 of 26 polls reporting. Still tight. Waiting to see what happens when those two polls report. And Richmond Steveston, Kelly Green leading by 636 votes over Michelle Molyneux. This is flipped back and forth. A major win for the NDP in 2020. But Jackie Lee, non-affiliated, 2,217 votes. We're still waiting for two more polls to report. Anyone else nervous?
Everybody's nervous. Dan, Michelle, thank you very much.
Okay, yeah.
At least we got some snacks. Thank you, Shakti.
Hey, you guys got snacks? And we're still snack-free at the
Let's
desk.
buy her back, shall we? Yeah.
But it's very interesting, especially in those tight races. Again, Richmond Steveston and Vernon Lumley, just to see where the independent and non-affiliated candidate is, in fact, a factor here. And it is in a sense splitting the vote.
Yeah, no independents leading at all, but as you say, still having a big impact on a race that is at a razor's edge. The NDP right now leading or elected in 46 ridings, Conservatives in 45, the Green Party in 2 ridings, just to show you how tight this race is. Let's take you back now to NDP headquarters, where our Katie DeRosa is standing by. Hi, Katie.
That's right. I'm here with Kareem Alam. He's a former BC Liberal strategist, worked on Kevin Falcon's leadership campaign, also worked on Mayor Ken Sims' campaign. He joined the NDP just last week because he was upset with some of the BC Conservatives' more extreme, what he called far-right candidates. And I just want to ask Kareem, what's the factor here? That why are we seeing such a close race? What do you see?
It's very obvious to me we have a deeply wounded and divided province. Not only are the results on seat counts close, but the results on seats themselves are extremely close. We have Christians, Jews, Muslims, Indigenous people, but also small business owners and big business owners and workers and labor, all deeply unhappy. The micro-targeting of this campaign means we don't have to coalition build anymore. So dividing is a new game and it's not unifying.
Do you think we're going to see recounts? Like when do you think we'll see results in this election?
Well, based on what I just saw, CBC just report, we're seeing about 5 seats under 100 votes separating those winners and losers. And those seats are automatic recounts. My candidate in Vancouver, Yaletown, Terry Young just won. That's why everyone's so happy. But yes, it's 100 votes, automatic recount. Some of those other seats at 200 might be claims for the other parties themselves to go out there and file a judicial recount. They may be rejected, they may be accepted. 100's automatic, anything under 200 or 300 could go to a recount itself. It might be, if these votes don't change, that we might not know who wins government tonight.
Some of the centrist voters that were left politically homeless by when BC United folded, where do you think they went?
Well, it's very clear. In Vancouver, they went with the NDP. In Surrey and in Richmond, it looks like they broke to the Conservatives. It depends really on where you live and what the biggest issues in your community were. But again, what we're seeing here in this divided vote is a result of the micro-targeting that both campaigns took on. Long gone are the days of coalition building.
And there you have Kareem Alam talking about just how close things are, the likelihood of potential recounts in some ridings. And this shows us just a divided province. Many people angry about housing and healthcare, but other people agreeing with the NDP's message. So really, again, a nail biter tonight.
No kidding. Katie DeRosa, thank you very much. And nothing demonstrates those divisions other than looking at the bottom of our screen tonight. NDP still leading in 46 ridings, Conservatives in 45, and the Greens in 2. We have reporters around the province taking in the results and gauging reaction. Let's take you to Kelowna now, where Chris Walker is standing by. Chris?
Gloria, a very happy room here at Gavin Dew's campaign in Kelowna Mission, but the real story is developing at Kelowna Centre with 30 votes back and forth between Loyal Wooldridge with the NDP and Christina Lowen with the Conservatives. And depending on how you do the math, that could be the difference between an NDP majority and an NDP minority. So very tight there. The other interesting race in Vernon-Lumby, where Harwinder Sandhu looks like she will hold on. She's the incumbent with the NDP. And both of those ridings would be Conservative were it not for independent candidates. Both former BC United candidates, both decided to run. Michael Humer in Kelowna Centre and Kevin Acton, popular mayor in Lumby. So very tight race here in Kelowna Centre, but essentially everywhere else around the southern interior, especially the Okanagan, we're looking at deep blue. Very solidly Conservative. Couple of NDP ridings in the Kootenays that have hung on. No surprise there. Long time NDP ridings, but lots of blue around not only the Okanagan, but the East Kootenay as well. Very happy people here tonight, that's for sure.
Chris Walker reporting from Kelowna tonight. Thank you.
Well, so many ridings to watch this evening, I should say. We want to zero in on one NDP candidate in particular. He is a familiar name to many, Nathan Cullen. Let's check in on riding results in Bulkley Valley, Stikine, where Nathan Cullen is trailing, and I'd say significantly so at this point. Sharon Hartwell with the Conservatives leading by 939 votes. Nathan Cullen, of course, former MP with the NDP, becoming an MLA with the provincial NDP afterwards. But this is an interesting result right now. I'd love to get reaction from Ginger Gosnell-Myers. Ginger, what do you make of this?
This is a really surprising result because that riding has seen majority of NDP support over the years. Nathan Cullen has been quite popular with the NDP, all of his time as an MP, and then his switch over to provincial politics. He was seen as a potential leader of the provincial NDP at one time. And I don't think that folks were expecting him to lose this riding. I think it's going to be a huge loss for the BC NDP. Of course, we've seen a lot of racism in that riding. We've seen some vandalism of signs in that riding. It's gotten quite ugly. It's been really disappointing to see that in this election. And for Nathan Cullen, I think this is something that folks are going to be quite upset over the next few days.
Shachi, of course, this race is on a knife's edge, and therefore it's hard to draw any conclusions until every vote is counted, it seems. But what do you make of the night so far for David Eby?
Well, I think we can draw some early conclusions about what kind of night it's been for the NDP and David Eby. It has not been a good night. Now, like we've been saying since the beginning of the evening, it was going to be tight. It was tight. And that level of dissatisfaction that people were feeling and seeing in terms of government performance on the opioid crisis, on the decriminalization of public consumption of hard drugs, on ER closures and the inability to get access to primary health care in this province. It's like the message was there. And I think over the course of the campaign, there may have been some skepticism or a bit of like, yeah, but are people really that angry? I think they've sent a pretty clear message tonight that in many cases, they are that angry. They were that angry. An incumbent like Nathan Cullen going down to the Conservatives tonight is a big signal. The fact that, as you say, they're on a knife's edge, it is a pretty big signal and a repudiation of a lot of the things that we saw, I think, in terms of policy development, in terms of the way the Eby government perhaps went maybe too far, too fast on a lot of issues for British Columbians, while maybe losing sight of the bread and butter stuff, cost of living, housing, and so importantly, healthcare. So those are some big black eyes. I think on the other side of it for the Conservatives, you know, the candidate eruptions, the controversial comments, the sometimes racist, really not acceptable comments from some candidates that Rustad said that he would stand by, that he would not ditch. Again, I think the chattering classes and the political analysts and the pundits might have said, well, that's going to be problematic. I think voters have showed us tonight that they priced that in to the cost of their vote when making up their minds.
Shashi, thank you. Mo, one of the visuals we keep seeing tonight is the map of BC, and you can just see the fracture in the party geographically speaking. I wonder how politically divided you think BC is right now.
Well, it's interesting to see the BC NDP doing not as well as expected in Surrey and Richmond in particular. And that's basically where they're losing this election. I know it's still tight, but in terms of where they underperformed, you can look at those two regions specifically. If you had given the BC NDP the opportunity to form the perfect political opponent in a laboratory 6 months ago, they would have given you a party very similar to the BC Conservatives. They would have given you a leader that perhaps is not that charismatic, perhaps has some climate change denialism, some vaccine skepticism, has pandered to conspiracy theorists. Maybe their front line would be not that well-known BC Liberal MLAs, and then the rest of the party would be rounded out by basically internet trolls. On top of that, the BC Conservatives did not have a get-out-the-vote strategy. They didn't really have voter ID systems. I mean, this was a party that really did not have the same amount of resources as the BC NDP, and the fact that it's this close is very much a repudiation of David Eby and the BC NDP.
Our political watchers panel, always great to hear from you. We'll continue to hear from all three of you throughout the evening. Gloria.
Let's head to Vancouver Island. We're taking you to Nanaimo now, where George Anderson has been projected elected in Nanaimo Landsville. A good evening to you. And how are you feeling about this close race tonight?
Well, I can tell you that I'm focused on Nanaimo Landsville, and I feel extremely honored to be the first MLA for Nanaimo Landsville, and I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that the individuals in our community are represented well.
And what went right with your community? What were the messages that landed with voters in your view?
Well, I would say that I was born and raised in this community. I was a city councillor from 2011 to 2014. I volunteered significantly in this community. And what people were hearing and saying at the doorsteps is that they wanted a government that's focused on healthcare, that's focused on affordable housing, and making sure that we're doing everything that we can for everyday British Columbians. And that's what I will do as the MLA for Nanaimo Landsville.
The first MLA for Nanaimo Landsville. George Anderson, thank you for your time tonight.
Yes.
George Anderson,
Thank you.
projected elected in Nanaimo Landsville tonight. Jason.
Okay, so we haven't seen much change in the numbers right now. The NDP still leading and elected in 46 ridings. The Conservatives at 45 and the Greens at 2. But we can tell you the races are extremely close. We'll continue to keep our eye on those races that could flip all these numbers on their head. Let's go back now to Stephen Quinn and our political insiders.
Mo Sahota just a few minutes ago noticed something, and that is that when you look at most of the races, it looks like 2 polls have yet to report. Tell us what you noticed exactly.
Yeah, no, it seems in every one, it's 20 out of 22 polls reporting, and yeah,
I've been keeping track, almost every poll.
Yeah, and so as a result of that, until those last 2 sets of polls are counted in at least 5 seats that are still very much at play, we really won't know what the outcome tonight is in terms of who forms government for the majority, or if there's just going to be a minority at the 46-45-2 level.
And there doesn't seem to be much difference between whether in the lower mainland or in urban areas.
No, it's right across. So I don't know if it's a
Richmond Center I'm looking at. There's 2 polls outstanding in just about every riding right now. We've got 2 polls outstanding, and this is the new automatic tabulation system that's being used. It's supposed to speed things up. We're told that according to Elections BC, I just went onto their website, and they say that 98% of all votes will be counted, or as many as 98% will be counted on election night. Does that mean we're going to be here all night waiting for the last 2%?
I certainly hope we get snacks.
Yeah.
I mean,
not you too.
Just saying.
Rich, I want to ask you about not this Mo, and not
Mo.
Pete Mo, the other Mo. And a rather scathing assessment of the BC Conservative Party a moment ago.
Yeah, Mo, that was not, I think it was a bit dramatic and over the top. I think what we're learning tonight is that there are a lot of people in this province that believe in the Conservative Party. They're potentially our next government. They believe in John Rustad and a lot of the candidates. It's easy to say, you know, they have all of these issues. What really it boils down to is these are small business owners. These are young parents. I mean, we saw Gavin Dew get elected in Kelowna. He's the father of young children who really wants to see childcare propelled forward in this province. Under the BC Liberals, we got so much slack for having older candidates. And now we're seeing a slate of younger candidates across the province. And to degrade them to the diatribe that Mo Amir just said, I think it's not fair. I really think we need to look at some of the benefits that we have in those candidates across the province.
But in fairness, you know, someone like Brett Chapman won tonight. And I think that's a real problem.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I
and
agree.
so you can agree with me and the other Mo on that front. I mean, you have
Yes.
someone
And
who
Pete
made,
Mo, I'm just going to say.
And Pete Mo.
And Pete as well.
It's true.
Pete,
but,
yeah.
but I just want to, the dramatization of the
That's not-
Conservatives as bad and everybody being under that same banner, I think we need to also look at some of the benefits that the Conservatives are offering British Columbians that obviously, when we see these results, British Columbians are respectful of and responding to.
We all look forward to the 5% annual growth, I am sure, which is what we're told we're going to get. Hey, have we seen Mr. Rustad just completely overpromise? I mean, how is he going to live up to suggesting that we can have a 5% annual growth rate in this province, for instance?
John Rustad laid out his plan for the province. Voters
3 days before the vote.
He laid it out. Voters are responding to it. I mean, I'm not the one to choose the premier. I wish I was.
I understand.
But British Columbians, 5 million British Columbians have the opportunity to say, John Rustad, we believe or we don't believe in your platform. And obviously, we're seeing that they are coming out in droves and saying, we want change. The NDP have failed us. We want to see,
I don't
we
agree
want
with
to
that.
see the plan that John Rustad has put forward.
Let's hear from Pete for a second.
I think that it was a change vote rather than a we really like what they're laying out. I think it wasn't costed. It was a pretty vague plan, and I think overpromised all sorts of things. And I don't think people were really looking at the plan. I think there's a lot of young people under 30 who have never lived with a Conservative government. But they have been under a Pierre Trudeau and a provincial NDP government, and things aren't better for them. So they're looking like that hasn't been good. How can we change things? How can we get life better? And forget about things like COVID and inflation and interest rates and all the other pressures that we've had on society that we've been struggling with and have made life arguably worse. People are just looking for something better, and I think that's what
we've talked about the messaging of the Conservative campaign tonight, and I think that is what has resonated. This campaign that BC can do better, that there are ways that we can put policies out that will make life more affordable, that we can, and John Rustad put that to voters, and that's what we're seeing tonight.
My only suggestion is that he has a lot to live up to.
And he won't be able to live up to it. Look, what's happening out there right now, there's a residual unease. There's high interest rates, there's high inflation, and people are having trouble going from month to month, from paycheck to paycheck. And so they're looking for solutions. And they're very divided on what those solutions ought to be. Look, a lot of people tonight voted NDP. They voted NDP because they think we're going to be better at looking after healthcare, better at dealing with issues of affordability, and better at dealing with issues of housing. And so it's a divided province, historically a highly polarized one, and that these results tonight reflect simply that. I don't think that it's a vote in favor of Mr. Rustad, and I think most people would rather prefer that Mr. Eby be the premier of the province, and he's one, possibly 2 seats short of that.
We shall see shortly, we hope. Thank you, all three of you, once again. Back to the desk.
Stephen, thank you very much. Well, if tonight wasn't dramatic enough,
add a little more drama.
It's gotten more dramatic. We're getting information right now from Elections BC. And in terms of the numbers not coming in, this is why. Elections BC is setting a safety issue in the polls that haven't finished reporting right now, saying that the final poll in many of these districts won't be released just yet until they can recount the full votes, given how close this race is. Once again, Elections BC is setting a safety issue because according to the electronic tabulators, which is once again the first time we're using these in a BC provincial election, once that final poll is reported, that polling station closes down, which we are understanding BC Elections does not want to do just yet. So they want to recount until they release the final poll. It just so happens, Gloria, of course, that final poll could determine who forms government
in close races like this. And it's interesting because we did hear, prior to the polls closing tonight from Andrew Watson of Elections BC that considering we've got this electronic voting system, it could be all, called within an hour. We saw the results come in very, very quickly initially. But again, we have not seen those numbers change on the bottom of our screen for quite some time now. And that, I was going to say, that explains it. It's still confusing. We have put out a request to Elections BC for more clarification on exactly what is going on, but we've got a lot of outstanding close races,
Exactly.
Jason.
And as you say, Gloria, CBC has put a request into Elections BC to get clarification on the situation. But as I say, the latest information we have, the final poll in many of these ridings not being released just yet, citing safety issues, wanting to recount to make sure they have those numbers correctly. And have a look. This is why it matters. Too close to call. Wanda Fuka-Malahat, where the NDP candidate is currently leading the Conservatives by 34 votes. Surrey City Centre, just as close. The NDP candidate there leading the Conservative by 41 votes.
Surrey Guildford, Kelowna Centre, Courtney Comox, Coquitlam Burke Mountain, all very, very close matches. Let's go back to Dan and Michelle for more results.
Wow, look at how tight and how close those ridings are that are too close to call right now. Let's take you back up to the northern interior where there's a lot of blue. The Conservatives' vote share right now is at 61%, and the NDP have a vote share of 27.3%. And how about the seat change? Well, the Conservatives picking up 9. They're leading in 9, and the NDP -1 right now when it comes to the ridings there in the northern interior. In fact, let's look at some of those specific ridings. In Bulkley Valley, Stikine, the Conservative candidate, the former mayor of Telkwa, Sharon Hartwell, is leading by 1,301 votes over the NDP incumbent, Nathan Cullen. So that result there, I'm sure NDP is really on their edge of their seats for that one. And in the Caribou-Chilcotin, the Conservative candidate, Lorne Dirksen, is projected elected there. He was one of the early BC United MLAs to jump ship over to the BC Conservatives. Lorne Dirksen is projected elected in Caribou-Chilcotin. And of course, let's revisit John Rustad, leader of the BC Conservatives, is projected elected in Nechako Lakes. And one more here, North Coast, Haida Gwaii, Tamara Davidson, the NDP candidate, is projected elected there for the NDP.
We have several more to go through, so we'll get you caught up as we wait for those updates from Elections BC. Peace River North, Jordan Keeley projected elected over the incumbent Dan Davies, 25 of 27 polls reporting. Over in Peace River South, Larry Neufeld, the Conservative, projected elected with 4,500 vote lead over the incumbent, now independent, Mike Bernier. Elsewhere, Prince George Mackenzie, Keel Giddens, 5,700 vote win over Shar McCrory of the NDP as well. Almost all polls reporting there. Prince George, North Caribou, Sheldon Clare for the Conservatives, almost 6,700 vote win there over Coralie Oakes, the former BC Liberal. Prince George Valemount, Rosalind Bird, projected elected, 3,300 vote lead and victory over Clay Pountney for the NDP. And in Skeena, projected elected Claire Ratty with an 886 vote victory over the NDP's Sarah Zimmerman.
Thank you very much, you two. And we do have some news, and it is good news for the Greens in British Columbia. We have our first projected elected Green candidate. That's Rob Botterill in Saanich North and the Islands. This was the riding that Adam Olsen left. He decided to step away from politics right now. So Rob Botterill will be going to the legislature in the next session.
All right. And of course, there is one other Green that's leading their riding. That is Jeremy Valloret in West Vancouver, Sea to Sky. But you have to think for Green supporters, that's going to be good news, especially given how tight that race ended up. Catherine Cullen is with us now. She is the host of The House on CBC Radio 1. Tell us what's been going through your mind. What are some of the interesting storylines you've been following?
Yeah, I mean, I think what some of the lessons that folks are going to try to take away federally from this have to do with the issues that have been animating the discussion over the course of the campaign. So we all know affordability, housing, top of mind, and British Columbia has been at the forefront of this housing crisis that is being faced across the country. I think it's really interesting to watch the way in which David Eby has tried to make the case that, British Columbia is starting to turn the corner. Rents are starting to stabilize, prices are starting to come down, that he's taken specific actions that have helped free up a certain amount of housing, while at the same time you have people feeling, I think, in their day-to-day lives generally that things are not getting a lot easier, that you really feel that housing crunch. It is in some ways the same challenge that the federal Liberals face, where they've put forward a pretty aggressive housing plan in the spring. This is not an issue that gets solved quickly. So trying to convince people, I have a plan, I'm taking action on this. On the other side of the coin, you have the John Rustat, Pierre Poilievre dynamic saying, look around you, people. If you are making the decision about whether or not this is the future that you want, just ask yourselves, does your life feel better? Do you have faith that your leaders are making the right decisions for you? I'd say another really interesting one, but in a very different way, the carbon tax, where we saw both of the major political parties distance themselves, and the extent to which a discussion about the environment and climate change as such really not tracking. And we do see that in the opinion polls federally as well, that it's just not a motivating issue to the same extent it used to be. When we talk about the carbon tax right now, it's very much an economic discussion, and that is very much something that favors.
Let's bring in Richard Zussman at the Results Center. A lot of blue on that board. I mean, there's still one behind the NDP, but there's a lot of blue.
Yeah, story of two British Columbias, but I want to get to that point that Keith just made. I've just spoken to high-level organizers for the Conservatives. John Rustat is not coming out to speak yet. They need more time. And the sense I get, the reason for that is they believe that John Rustat could win a majority government tonight. And they are looking at those two seats that Keith mentioned. They believe it is possible tonight as part of the path forward. So I want to show you what that looks like on the map, because they believe if they can flip those two tonight, John Rustat could win that majority government. Yes, it would be razor thin. Yes, it would be problematic. The caucus for the Conservatives could be unruly, but this is quite the result. So Wanda Fukamala, 26 vote lead, Dana Lejeunesse, and that's those two polls left, as I described before. So we're waiting on the votes outside of the district, outside of that riding. We will get those tonight. We are also waiting for those that were counted at electoral district offices before advanced voting started, but those won't be a lot of votes there. The other one that they are waiting on very closely is here in Surrey. Focus is on that riding of Surrey City Centre, and Amna Shah leads by just 43 votes. So there is a belief from the Conservative camp that they could flip those two. But the reality is there are others out there that are still very much a part of this conversation, that are still being, that we still don't have the final results, and that are still very, very close. Not as close as those two. And in part, that's why John Rustat's camp has some confidence here. Because in Courtney Comox, the lead is 231. But again, those two remain, and it's been an extremely close race there for the entire evening. And then we'll go back into Surrey, because that's an important part of the conversation as well, as we focus in on Surrey-Guildford. Again, 102 votes. Honvir Randhawa, the Conservative, is leading by 102 votes over incumbent Gary Begg. So, we heard Brenda Law complain a lot about this government not giving enough to Surrey. Surrey didn't get the support it needed of a growing city. Well, the people of Surrey are sending a message to the province to say, well, you didn't give us enough, and now you're getting a message.
All right.
If Guildford slips below 100 votes, that's the third recount.
Right.
So right now we've got two recounts likely in Wanda Fuca and Surrey Centre, and it could be a third in Guildford.
So we may not really know anything.
There's certainly, based on Richard's correspondence, no chance of a Rustat concession speech tonight, for sure. And that's understandable when numbers are as close as they are.
I can say not all the votes will be counted tonight.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to Conservative Party headquarters, where our Jordan Armstrong is standing by, and definitely not with John Rustat, because he won't be speaking yet.
Yeah, Sophie, it is very tense down here. They probably should have brought in massage chairs tonight. And just to pick up on what Richard was saying, there is indeed a back room just off to my right. And about 20 minutes ago, we started to see a lot of the party bigwigs go back there and assemble. So that is certainly the sign that some high-level discussions are happening behind the scenes. Want to bring in Mike Smith, because he's been working the room, talking to people. What are you hearing, Mike?
Well, you know, the mood in the room really changed about an hour ago when it looked like the Conservatives were on a roll and they were maybe heading to power. Then things started to flip. So the old roller coaster at the PNE has got nothing on this place. It's been up and down all night long. If it stays the way it is now, you're looking obviously at a minority government. There'll be some wheeling and dealing, just like there was in 2017, potentially between the NDP and the Greens. If it stays the way it looks right now, of course, things could change. Back in 2017, you might recall that Andrew Weaver was criticized by a lot of people that he didn't drive a hard enough bargain with John Horgan and the NDP, didn't get enough. So could the Green Party this time around, if this ends up in power negotiations with the NDP, ask for a lot more concessions from an NDP government in order to prop them up and put them in power? Things like the carbon tax or old growth logging or some of the drug reforms where the two parties were very, very far apart. So, you know, I'm not surprised that we haven't heard from Rustad yet because there's still a lot going on here.
And we could be back here again not long from now if it keeps going this way.
I mean, if it's so close and you get into a minority situation with just a very, very tiny margin of error for governing, it's hard to see how a government could last a very long time under those circumstances. We might have to do a do-over here at some point and do another election.
All right. Well, I think a lot of people here weren't expecting it to be such a late night, and so far, no sign of anyone going home anytime soon. We'll send it back to the desk.
Great. Thanks, you two. Well, we've had a lot of practice at it, so
yeah,
we could potentially, if we have to, do it again.
True. It feels like we're doing it again after the last time we went through this. The circumstances are so similar, but it was an issues election, no doubt about it. Some very, very important issues for voters. We'll throw it over to our issues panel now to talk about, hey, how are they going to get things done over the next year, two? Very unlikely it's going to be, very unlikely.
We don't know the timeline, Chris. We don't know. There's so much that we don't know. How will anything be accomplished, especially when you look at the topic of healthcare? It is an issue across the province, whether you're in an urban center or in a rural community. And Dr. Wolak, I wanted to just get your thoughts on what could play out if we have a minority government that looks like this, and when we have so many problems to deal with in healthcare. And we know that in Surrey, it has been especially bad, with so many people relying on Surrey Memorial Hospital and just not enough capacity there. Can we help that situation with a minority government like this?
Essentially, they are going to whoever forms government and whoever forms opposition needs to put their big person boots on and shake hands and work together to address everything, because healthcare will affect everyone and healthcare will affect the running of the province eventually. So whoever forms government needs to sit down and address things like the primary care shortage. That's a big issue. Needs to address waiting times in the emergency rooms, in specialist waiting times, needs to address procedure waiting times in the BC Cancer Agency. And then they also need to address just things like mental health supports. There's so many things that need to come together, and everybody just needs to basically grow up, put on your big boy boots, and work together.
Yeah. And as we were watching the results come in, Rachna Singh has lost her seat. Education Minister, a big proponent of SOGI. How do you think that played into what we're seeing?
Well, I think education has been a bit of a sleeper issue. And you look at the education minister losing her constituency. I mean, that's a strong NDP constituency traditionally. So that's definitely an upset. You know, I think that one of the things the public is really getting frustrated with is hearing politicians make the same promises and announcements over and over and over again, but not delivering. And you look at the issue of portables, particularly in Surrey and other fast-growing school districts. You know, successive governments have said, we're going to get rid of portables. And they're always announcing new schools and new promises, and people are not seeing it on the ground. I mean, I'm living this frustration in Port Coquitlam. We had Hazel Trembath Elementary School tragically burned down more than a year ago. And it's been caught in this cycle of red tape and bureaucracy and no shovels in the ground, despite promises over and over again that, oh, don't worry, it's going to get done. And I think people have had their limit with that.
Yeah.
They don't want to see the same old promises, but nothing actually be delivered.
And I think you see some of that frustration playing out right now. I was in grade 7 in 1994 in Surrey and saw portables, and nothing's changed. Successive governments, it's a burgeoning population. But when you look at something like healthcare and education, issues that are so close to people, and when parties try to get into culture wars to define their opponents, they're really losing what people are really caring about. And when you try to define your opponents and go to the door, I always give the example of private models. We do need to look at it in a sense. When you go to a doctor's office, we already have a private model. Single payer, universally paid. You go see a doctor, that doctor's office is run privately, but the government's paying for it. So can we look at models and just get out of the polarization and look at things broadly and look at models that work?
And can we do that? Can we accomplish anything if we have a legislature that looks
based on
like
this?
But again, that speaks to the promises after promises. In 2010, we were already promised a GP for me. That was what was launched. They were going to link every British Columbian to a family doctor. It is now 2024, and we still have 700,000 people who have not had a family doctor. Promises are made, but promises are not kept.
I think one of the challenges in any election, and I think especially with whoever forms government, is that there's these other factors that shape the politics of our communities, whether it's like Surrey, one of the fastest growing cities in the country, is that you have these other levers, whether it's global economic trends or whether it's federal policy that then gets downloaded into things like healthcare and education and all these other issues, where now the provincial government is sort of blamed for those things and blamed for not taking enough action. So if the feds control things like the population issue and the province is expected to now deliver on schools and hospitals, the amount of demand for those infrastructure pieces become really difficult. And whether it's the Conservatives or the BC NDP that form government, the cost of doing these large-scale infrastructure projects are just so high now, and the access to labor forces to build these things drive up. You can't do too many projects at once, because then all of a sudden all the projects start becoming more expensive. So if you try to build 10 or 20 or 30 hospitals, 100 or 200 or 300 schools, there's a problem with the ability to actually deliver on those things in a timely way, even though that the actual demand for it is
and
there.
the people to actually build them, right? Yeah, so much to discuss. We're going to throw it back to Chris and Sophie now. Hopefully we can get a little bit of a clearer picture as to which way this is going to go, but I know it could take some time.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get that in the next hour or so before we're scheduled to go off the air.
Or next couple days.
Or maybe, yeah, it could be days.
Still very tight. Let's take a look at some of those key Surrey ridings. We always talk about battleground Surrey. Well, this was a very high-profile race between Eleanor Sturko and Mike Starchuk.
Yeah, we haven't declared Eleanor Sturko elected yet, but she's got a pretty big lead there. We haven't declared former Mayor Linda Hepner, though, the winner in the new riding, or the additional riding of Surrey Serpentine River. The NDP really had been hoping to pick that one up. And Surrey Guildford remains a pretty tight contest, 103 votes now separating the Conservatives and the NDP there. That'll likely potentially go to a recount. And Jagger Brar, who's won several times in Surrey Fleetwood, has a lead of just under 600 votes there. We're not quite declaring him elected yet.
So it's very tight in Surrey.
Yeah, Surrey. I think Surrey's the story in some ways of the election, and we've been focusing our coverage through the campaign. Richard with his maps. We've been doing focusing on the ridings there, the Surrey battleground. Historically, the NDP very strong in the northern part of the city, and the Conservatives, or the BC Liberals formerly, stronger in the south. But as we touched on, our panel's been touching on this as well. The Surrey population has exploded in the last decade, putting enormous pressure on the need for public services. And I think the frustration is sort of boiled over to the point that normally very safe Surrey seats, such as Surrey North, which was formerly Surrey Wally and Surrey Green Timbers, now just basically a pretty easy win for BC Conservatives.
More than 2 million votes have been counted since polls closed at 8 o'clock. And it's amazing that we have in at least a handful of ridings.
One to Fuca.
Wow.
Less than 40. Less than 30. Richard is taking a look at some of the very close races now.
We'll get to the really close ones in a sec. I know Trevor Halford is watching very, very closely. not declared elected yet in Surrey, but a big, big lead. So we expect him to go back. I know he's been waiting to see that one pop up, but let's talk about the really, really close ones. Wanda Fukumalahad is one of those based on, we've been talking a lot about this tonight. The ridings got redrawn significantly across the province, 70 border changes to all the ridings in the province, 6 additional ridings. This is one with the best data we have available to us. If you took the 2020 results and put them on these maps, the NDP would have received 52% of the vote, the Greens 33, the BC Liberals 14. The fact that this is within 26 votes means there's been a substantial change in sentiment in those communities that include Souk, but also Mill Bay, Cobble Hill, Shawnigan Lake, that area, and it's just 26 votes still there. That's, again, one of the reasons we haven't seen John Rustad come up on that stage yet. They are waiting for those final results to come in. Now, I'm going to go out to go back in because I want to focus on Kelowna Centre as well. This is another reason why maybe we haven't seen David Eby up on the stage yet, because they are waiting for results in places like this. The Conservatives in Kelowna Centre lead by 147. And again, I'll remind you, 2 polls left to report. So we're waiting on those votes that were cast outside of the riding. They have not been yet submitted in as they are double checking to make sure there's no other riding votes out there. And then the other one are the advanced polls before through the district office. That's going to be a very small chunk as well. We'll go back to Vancouver Island. I want to show you the decisive riding back in 2017. Courtney Comox once again playing a role tonight. So close. There's 234 votes. Again, those 2 polls are still left. Those are the ones we are watching for, and those could be the ballots that change where that is going to go. We'll focus back in on the Okanagan. There's one really close seat in the Okanagan. I know we're jumping in and around the province a little bit as we take a look at these really close races. Penticton-Summerland is one that Amila Boutby is leading by 475 votes over the New Democrat. Again, those 2 are remaining, so we don't know what those look like. And Tracy St. Clair was the United candidate. She's clearly pulled here from the Conservatives, so it may not swing, but it is part of the conversation. I want to talk one more time about a riding that was really crucial when it came to BC United's role in all of it, and that's the riding of Vancouver-Langara. It was one of the ones that was most hotly contested and debated. The BC Liberals won it last time around with Michael Lee. Brian Bruget was the Conservative candidate. There was a movement that Jamie Stein, the United candidate, could replace him after some controversy. The Conservatives made the decision to hold on to Brian Bruget, and they're just waiting for that one, those pre-district. So although we haven't declared it yet, this 312 vote lead looks pretty solid as part of that conversation. And this would be one of those second guess ridings where the Conservatives say to themselves, well, if we had removed Brian Bruget as the riding, maybe Jamie Stein would have won it for us, and we'd be looking at a slightly different situation here.
Richard, I want you to clarify quickly, if you can, because you mentioned it about some of these votes that are just still sitting out there. We mentioned the advanced polls. That was a big dump right after 8 o'clock. But there's this kind of advanced vote.
Yes.
That's only a handful of votes. Describe how that works and how people do that.
Yeah, so there was an opportunity from the writ drop day 28 days ago to vote in a district office. You could have showed up. They would have printed you out a ballot. You would have filled that ballot out. It was before the advance polls open. It was done in different offices across the province. It may have been for people who are traveling abroad. So those votes are accumulated as that process. And then the other ones we're waiting for, which I think are a bit clearer, are those votes that if you live in Maple Ridge East, but happen to be today in Maple Ridge Pitt Meadows, you popped in there, you checked your X on a ballot that was printed out for you. They are calling around to make sure there aren't other ballots out there that belong to them. That's why it's taking some time here, guys.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Richard.
Very quickly, we want to show you the results in South Surrey White Rock, or Surrey White Rock, pardon me, where we are now declaring Trevor Halford re-elected, 2,000 votes.
So, yeah, he barely won in 2020. The Liberals used to win this riding very easily. It was very close, but back to sort of normal results there with a very easy win for Trevor Halford. I think he was one of the BC United candidates that was allowed to run as a BC Conservative. It'll be interesting when all is said and done, and Richard just talked about it, John Rustad made some decisions and the board of BC Conservatives not to allow certain people to run under their banner who had been BC United candidates. Those people may have cost the Conservatives the election because they ran as independents, and a number of them ended up costing the Conservatives a seat. Vernon Lumby's a classic, where Kevin Kevin Acton got almost 4,000 votes that normally would have gone to the Conservatives if he hadn't run as an independent, but he was sort of upset that he'd been booted out as a candidate.
Could make a difference.
Adrian Dix, who held the role as health minister through the pandemic. Pretty safe riding for him. He's with Sarah McDonald right now at NDP headquarters. Sarah.
That's right. Yeah, speaking of incumbents who have been re-elected tonight, Adrian Dix is here, longtime NDP MLA, of course, for Vancouver Renfrew this time around. And of course, longtime serving healthcare minister, as you mentioned, Chris, in his previous mandates with the NDP. Mr. Dix, congratulations on your re-election tonight.
Thank you. It's obviously a great night in Vancouver Renfrew, and a strong night for the NDP. You know, 45% of the vote is a historic level of support for the NDP in a time when incumbent governments across the world have been having difficulty. We've seen that in elections. It's really a remarkable performance in some ways in terms of popular vote for the government. Obviously, we've lived this night before in 2017, the night we're living now. It's incredibly close. And so we're going to do what we all should do. The policy papers go away, the discussions go away, the debates go away. We count the voters' votes, and we'll see what happens.
I talked to you about this off camera. Aren't you tired? Like, you must be, would you accept a cabinet position again if the NDP were to form government? You have been such a long-serving healthcare minister for this province. How do you feel going forward if the NDP is to form government again? Would you accept a position in cabinet again?
More energetic than ever before. The decisions about cabinet get chosen by the Premier, and tonight we still don't know the result of the election. So I think we'll put all that aside, but I feel more energetic, more enthused, a more active advocate for people in public health care than I've ever felt before. And I think we're really breaking through in some areas, particularly in primary care. We've added 835 doctors since the new agreement with doctors was put into place. And we're going to have this coming year a record year in attaching patients to doctors in BC. So we've got to keep driving public health care. It's a real difference, of course, between ourselves and the Conservatives. But we're gonna fight for that in the next legislature, you bet.
On that note, before we go, I wanted to ask you, I mean, if we do see the Conservatives form government tonight, I know you have a lot of strong feelings about how John Rustad feels about privatization. You clearly feel very differently in terms of a two-tier system. What would happen? What would we see in this province if we were to see the Conservatives form government tonight?
Well, the last time that group took office, they laid off 10,000, mostly women, healthcare workers, and damaged our system for a generation. So obviously, we hope the result turns out well for us tonight. And regardless, I'll be fighting for public health care, fighting for healthcare workers, fighting for patients in the legislature.
Adrian Dix, longtime NDP MLA, re-elected this time for another term, another mandate in the Vancouver Renfrew riding this time around. Adrian Dix, thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
Great to be on.
Back to you guys.
Knows how to rattle off those statistics. Boy, thank you, sir.
That's actually a short interview with Adrian.
Yeah, it is.
If you want to start talking healthcare, that can go on for 20 minutes or so.
Passionate about the portfolio, though, but
Yeah.
you know, it remains to be seen whether he stays on as health minister. Richard is ready to weigh in.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, okay.
Okay, sorry. After the break.
Yes, we'll take a break. We'll be right back with more coverage of Decision BC. Stay with us.
Held this seat here for the last 4 years, and this could very much be one of the only NDP seats in the interior if she does end up winning at the end of the night. So her supporters are here watching very carefully to see if she does end up pulling this off. You can hear them in the background as they're excited seeing her name up there in the lead here. I've been speaking to her supporters about just this campaign and her being out on the campaign trail and talking to voters here and convincing them that the NDP is good for their riding here.
Brady,
Course,
I'm going to jump in there
Susan
right now. We don't have a
McCandless
particularly strong phone line from you right now, and I know there's quite a bit of noise in the background as well, so we're not catching everything that you're bringing us tonight. But that is Brady Strachan from Vernon Lumby this evening.
Right. Well, if you're just tuning in with us now, here is where things stand. It's a close race, folks. The NDP leading or elected in 46 riding, the Conservatives in 45, and the Greens in 2 ridings. Let's take a closer look at some of those crucial ridings right now. Dan and Michelle are back with us.
We're going to take you to Victoria right now, those ridings there. Let's take a look at the share of the vote around Victoria. The NDP leading with 46.8%, but we are seeing that mix, right? When you look at the map, all the mix of all the colors there. The Conservatives with 28.1% of the vote and the Greens with 24.7% of the vote. And let's move on to our next slide here. Some riding results for you from Victoria. Esquimalt-Colwood. This was where Mitzi Dean was the NDP incumbent, but she actually pulled out of the race, citing personal challenges. And so the NDP candidate is Darlene Rochford. She is projected elected in Esquimalt-Colwood. And let's move on to the next riding here, Langford Highlands. And the NDP candidate, incumbent Ravi Parmar, is projected elected there. This is a pretty safe seat for the NDP. This was John Horgan country, right? The former premier held the Langford riding for 18 years. So this was perhaps not unexpected for the NDP there. And so he has won over the Conservative candidate and the Green candidate there. Let's head to Oak Bay, Gordon Head, and another orange there. The NDP candidate, Diana Gibson, is projected elected there. This riding, Oak Bay, Gordon Head, it's been kind of all over the map when it comes to political parties that have held this. This has been Green with Andrew Weaver, if you'll recall. It's been BC Liberal, and it's been NDP. It looks like it will go back to the NDP with Oak Bay, Gordon Head's candidate, and for the NDP projected elected there. Dan?
Not far away, Victoria Beacon Hill, Grace Lohr. She was the Minister of Children and Family Development. Very challenging portfolio. She has projected elected 3,600 vote victory over Sonia Furstenau. And as we heard, I apologize, I'm not to blame for just announcing it. I'm sorry, Gregor, and all of the Green supporters. We're the messengers. There we are.
He might have kind of took the air out of the party there.
There you
but
go.
Dan is
That's why you
the
have
life,
a bar.
the life of the
Preferably,
party.
There you go. An open bar. Keep it in mind. Yes, very disappointing night for Sonia Furstenau. 22 of 24 polls reporting Tim Thielman, just over 5,100 votes for the Conservatives. Victoria Swan Lake. Nina Krieger projected elected with a 7,700 vote victory, rather decisive, over Christina Winter in second place for the Greens and Tim Taylor for the Conservatives, 4,800 votes, I should say there. Let's fire up one more here, or a couple. Saanich South, the incumbent Lana Popham. She was the Agriculture Minister. She was the Tourism and Sport Minister. 4,800 vote victory for her over Adam Kubel of the Conservative Party. Ned Taylor for the Green Party, 5,100 votes, 24 of 26 polls reporting. Do we have one more? And one more. Saanich North and the Islands, where the Greens, Rob Botterill, with a projected elected with a 1,300 vote victory over Sarah Riddell, 10,000 votes, and David Bush with just almost 10,000 votes, 27 of 29 polls reporting.
I like that our graphics team ended with Saanich North and the Islands, so you'll get a cheer, hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's going to help himself.
This is live redemption.
I'm just imagining, thank you very much to Dan and to Michelle. You know, the number of people that are tuning into these results tonight. You know, maybe they're not wrapped, 100% on us. Maybe they're going off to, I don't know, have a late dinner. Maybe they're going off to watch a movie and coming back. There's like, nothing has changed. What the heck is going on? This is what we know from Elections BC, that at this point in the evening, we have 91.9% of the vote is in. There are still more than 70 ridings where there's at least one voting day, that's from today, a ballot box left to count. Some of them still have out-of-district results to add to the mix as well. You probably have noticed CBC has not called 21 ridings yet. Very slowly, we are seeing those percentages creep up. They are getting through them very, very slowly, and that's why it's taking so long, and that's why we're not seeing any movement there. And as we pointed out, there are still many outstanding close ridings.
And I think that is the key, Gloria. I'm not just saying this to get you to stay with us here on CBC, but the votes are being counted. It is not coming in as quickly as we saw earlier today, but it went from 91.8 to 91.9% over just a couple of minutes. So we know the votes are coming. And of course, with the race this close, we could be seeing tipping points in the minutes to come. We will wait and see on that front. For now, though, let's throw it back to Stephen Quinn in our Political Insiders panel.
Jason, thank you so much. And I can imagine what everybody is going through, where the parties have met and candidates have met, and they're all looking at a screen that has not changed in a very long time. And Mo, of course, all of this harkens back to 2017. But what is going through the minds of those people who are just on the cusp of being elected right now? I mean, what must they be thinking?
Well, it's human nature to be frustrated, unsure about what the future holds. And I found in 2017, reality sunk in pretty quick. People realized that it might take day 2 or 3 before we could sort all of this out. And then they quickly got to the point of saying, yeah, look, and we're going to have to sit down and talk to the Greens. And I suspect that's going to happen again. There's a lot of common values between the NDP and the Greens. And you're going to start to see people starting to reflect on that as well as their standing over the next few days.
And what do you think about, Rachel?
Right now, I'm thinking not only about the candidates that are waiting for the answers, but all the staff, the volunteers on campaigns. I mean, I've never been elected, but I've been that staff person on a campaign that's just waiting for incremental numbers to come in. And, they're in it with their candidates. And so I'm thinking about them and how hard it is to temper your expectations and just keep telling yourself, okay, we may not win this, but like Mo said, I mean, it's human nature to be stressed about this. It's not just the candidates that are stressed. I guarantee that.
And what about for you, Pete?
I mean, I've been there a few times. And
yes, you have.
Dan mentioned the open bar, and the reality is, as a candidate, you can't hit the open bar because you have to be on no matter how it ends. And so it's extra stressful. You're sitting there, everybody around you is really stressed out. We're all clicking refresh on the voter tabulation. And meanwhile, you're thinking about, could we have done it differently? Could we have I should have done that last poll, and we should have got that last little push with the get out the vote. And if we only done it a little bit differently, maybe we would have. It's a lot of that. It's quite a nerve-wracking, sweaty palm kind of experience. I don't envy any of our colleagues who are out there. And it's a lot of hard work. It's like a marathon. You're running this incredible race, and then it all comes down to this. And there's a lot of adrenaline that's flowing through those rooms right now.
But we're so close. We're so close.
I know. So much waiting.
I know, and that's it. And I've been keeping track again. I'm just writing down the number 2. I've been watching the the bottom right corner of the screen, and a few of those 2s have turned into 1s. So we are making some progress. There are some new polls being reported or included, but so far not enough to make any difference to any of the results. And I guess, Pete, you're still sitting there looking at the number 2 for the Green Party without anybody actually projected elected yet.
Well, and that's a big long riding with a lot of more sort of challenging locations probably to pick up on. So
I guess we're going to hang around here for a good long time this evening.
That's okay.
Are you guys comfortable? Do you need anything?
Dan said something about an open bar.
No, that's not happening here, friend. That would be across the street, and that's an open bar that charges money. So, but the bar will be open. It's just costs money. Back to the desk of sober second thought.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Oh my goodness, what an evening. Again, historic in so many ways, Jason. We've been talking about close races all evening long. Remember, at a few points they had the Conservatives and the NDP absolutely in an absolute tie in some of these. Take a look at this. This is the closest race in the province this evening. Wanda Fuka-Malahat. Dana LaJeunesse is leading by 26 votes over Marina Sapochnikov. So she's the Conservative candidate there. 26 votes. Wanda Fuka-Malahat, this was an NDP stronghold, Jason.
Very much so. I mean, we've seen some boundary changes, which is the first thing I'll mention. It has, tiny coastal towns like Port Renfrew with other bigger bedroom communities now like Mill Bay. So those boundary changes may be at play in terms of what we're seeing right now in terms of the closeness of this race. But I would also ask you to look at the Green share of the vote here as well. David Evans right now with 5,339 votes. Of course, vote splitting, one of the conversations as part of the makeup of the seats right now. You have to look at that, especially as you say, with a 26 vote lead right now for the NDP candidate. And remember, folks, it's the NDP against the Conservatives in terms of that 46-45 numbers. So if that splits, then of course the Conservatives go to 46, and this becomes a very different conversation.
This was John Horgan's writing. When I talk about NDP stronghold, this is amazing that there's such a narrow lead right now.
Yeah. I wonder if our graphics team can pull up a map of Vancouver Island if we get a moment, because I think it speaks to so many of the battles that are at play. I know our panels have been talking about Vancouver Island specifically, so many battleground ridings there. Vancouver Island traditionally didn't always have, the most compelling storylines, save for maybe Courtney Comox in 2017. But have a look at this, folks. You have the North Island there that has turned blue. You see the NDP still probably liking their strongholds in the Mid Island and, of course, parts of the South Island. But you see that green representation as well. Of course, as you would imagine with my program, the Vancouver Afternoon Show, we've been talking about the ramifications of the island vote, and we are seeing that manifest right now. Vancouver Island, very much a big part of tonight's conversation.
So true. Okay, let's head back to NDP headquarters where Katie DeRosa is standing by. Katie?
I just want to talk about one issue that was a big issue in this campaign, and that's Indigenous reconciliation. The NDP said they would continue their work on the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples to continue to empower them to take control over Indigenous lands. But the BC Conservatives were pitching a different idea of economic reconciliation. John Rustad had said that he believes that the DRIPA needs to be changed. So I want to talk to Joan Phillip. Of course, she's the re-elected MLA for Vancouver Strathcona, and her husband, Grand Chief Stuart Phillip. So, Joan, how do you think Indigenous reconciliation played in this election?
Actually, I think it played a pivotal role because I think our constituents understand the importance of including everyone in the mix.
How do you feel seeing the results so close? How are you feeling?
Well, I know that, and I've seen them lie like a rug, so I'm not surprised, but disappointed. I really was hoping for a majority.
What do you think Indigenous people tonight will be feeling? What are they hoping to see?
Well, I think they're hoping to see the same of what they've seen from the New Democratic Party. More reconciliation, more working together, more consultation, and all those lies that were told about us having veto power and whatnot just won't happen.
And what other big issues were you hearing at the doorstep when you were door knocking in Vancouver? Right?
Actually, the biggest issues were the bread and butter type issues, the housing, healthcare, affordability. Those are the things that were top of people's minds when we were door knocking.
Anything that you're looking for, do you think the NDP will end up working with the Greens in a possible minority situation?
Well, that may have to happen because every law that we passed last go around that helped people, the opposition opposed, save and except for the Greens.
Okay, well, there we are. We just talked with Joan Phillip, and again, she's hopeful. She thinks maybe there could be collaboration with the Greens, but we're still waiting to see what it looks like. Back to you.
We certainly are. Katie DeRosa, thank you very much. She's at NDP headquarters tonight here in Vancouver.
And as you've probably been following along, we're still waiting for a bunch of votes to come through. Remember when we were promised with the electronic tabulators?
This is going to be
this
so
was all going to be
fast.
sewn up quickly. Not the case right now. I should mention we have reached out to Elections BC. We've put questions towards them. We've asked for a written statement, perhaps an on-camera interview tonight, because we know staff are working late into the night. We have been told we will not be getting an interview with Elections BC, but I do want to let you know that we have put in a request to get a better sense of what's happening, how these votes are being counted, and whether or not we will get final vote counts before the end of the night. Right now, though, let's go to our results desk. Dan Burrett and Michelle Elliott. We're calling it a desk, but you can't sit right now.
No chairs here.
No.
My feet are not very happy with me right now.
Dr. Scholl's doing a lot of heavy lifting tonight, but that's okay. Let's talk about the independents. Former BC United MLAs who decided to run on their own. Not a great night for them, speaking of open bar. Anyway, you can see Corinne Kirkpatrick, West Vancouver Capilano, goes down to defeat against the Conservatives' Lynn Block by almost 5,000 votes. And in fact, the NDP came in second in this one, 6,700 votes, 19 of 21 polls reporting. Corinne Kirkpatrick tried to put on a good game on this one. She was in, and then she was out, and now she was back in. Didn't work out.
And the rest of the province, of course, 4 of those 5 former BC United MLAs to run independent are outside the Lower Mainland. And let's head to Peace River North now. And yes, Dan Davies, who decided to run independent, trailing behind Jordan Keeley, the Conservative candidate who is projected elected there. And in Peace River South, which I think is our next slide for our riding results, and there we also had another incumbent independent, Mike Bernier, who also decided to run as a non-affiliated candidate, which there's not much of a difference there, but he has not won this riding back. The Conservative candidate, Larry Neufeld, projected elected in Peace River South. 19 out of 20 polls reporting. Let's head south now to the interior of the province at Kootenay Rockies, and Pete Davis, the Conservative candidate, projected elected there. Tom Shapitka, who did consider jumping over to the Conservatives, but he would have had to move ridings. He decided to run on his home turf as an independent. Unfortunately, that for him, that did not pay off, and he is not going back to the legislature. And in Prince George, North Caribou, Conservative candidate Sheldon Clare projected elected there, and the independent there, Coralie Oakes, who decided to run independent from after the BC United campaign imploded, she is not. It did not work out for her.
Michelle, Dan, thank you very much. And as you can see at the bottom of the screen, we do have crews waiting to hear from John Rustad. We will keep an eye on that, but we do want to take you right now to Surrey. Belle Puri is standing by at Surrey Cloverdale tonight. Belle?
Well, I don't think anyone thought it was going to take this long to find out who was going to win in this riding. It's been close, but we are waiting for the arrival of Eleanor Sturko. At last look, we have results from about 18 of the 20 polls. It's our understanding she wants to have all 20 in before she comes in and speaks to her supporters. There are about 3 dozen people here waiting for her to come in and talk to them. These are volunteers who worked right up to, the polls closing in the inclement weather today, trying to make sure that voters who might be thinking, oh, it's too wet, I'm not going to vote, make sure that they did get to go out and vote. Now, the latest results put Sturko in the lead over Mike Starchuk of the NDP by just under 700 votes. But as I say, there's still 2 more polls to come in. And to make matters more complicated, earlier this evening, there was a glitch in the system and votes were not being counted. Told it had something to do with the password. So there was a huge delay. We were stalled at just a couple of polls coming in. But as I say now, we're just a couple of polls away from all the results being in, and we hope to hear from Eleanor Sturko soon.
Yes, I know it is challenging when the results are just dribbling in, but Belle, thank you very much for that update. That's Belle Puri reporting from Surrey tonight.
All right, well, let's head to our Political Insiders panel now with Stephen Quinn.
Thank you very much, Jason. And Mosa Hoda, tell us, first of all, we've got a note here that we're awaiting John Rustad. We see Aisha Este from the BC Conservative Party speaking at the podium right now. If John Rustad is going to speak now, how would that have been decided that he's going to speak first?
Well, usually there's a conversation between the 2 camps. The campaign managers will talk to each other. And usually the protocol is that the premier speaks, the current incumbent premier speaks last. So Mr. Rustad will go now, and then David Eby a little bit later on tonight.
And what are the possibilities that we don't know yet, guys? Let's all go home and get some rest.
Well,
We'll talk in the morning.
I think that's a probability in terms of what they're going to say. I think at this point, we are sort of frozen at these numbers. It's obvious that there's going to be some recounts, and it's obvious that there's going to be conversations between the NDP and at least the members of the Green Party, because of their common values, to see if it's possible to produce a letter that you can take to the Lieutenant Governor and say, look, 47 of us have decided that so-and-so should be the leader of the province.
And tell me how that would actually play out then. I mean, if we end the night as we are now, NDP 46, Conservatives 45, and the Green Party 2, who goes to the Lieutenant Governor?
Well, Mr. Eby first. He's the incumbent premier, and if he has signatures of 46 MLAs from the NDP and 2 from the Green, then she will likely consent to him proceeding to govern.
All right,
and other way around too, if there's a relationship developed between the Conservatives and the Greens.
And are you confident that there's enough affinity between the Green Party and the NDP, or more than the Conservative Party?
I think so. There's been a lot of common values there, and I guess that'll be tested over the days ahead.
I guess, does it matter what gets offered to those Green Party?
It's not an offer,
candidates?
but I think the offer to the public is, like, do you want a government that believes in climate change and in Indigenous relations, amongst other issues?
The person beside you, Rachel, just rolled her eyes. You didn't even see that.
Sorry.
I wasn't looking. I was
It's
looking at
getting
you.
late. We've seen it happen between these two parties. They know each other well. We've seen it happen in Ottawa as well with the confidence and supply agreement there. So, yeah, I'm interested to see what John Rustad comes out and says tonight and what his message is. We're seeing that the president of the Conservative Party, Aisha Esty, speaking to the crowd right now. Will be interesting to see how the Conservatives come out and frame this, with it being so close, with ridings still in play, and then obviously to see what David Eby comes out and says as well.
I don't know that I've ever been in this, I mean, even in 2017, that I've ever been in the situation where everything is stalled, nothing is moving for as long as it has. Pete?
I mean, it is still almost too soon to really predict how it could go, but I do think that this is the kind of scenario that the Greens have imagined, where we could hold the balance of power. And yes, we can probably work with the NDP, and I think hold them accountable for some of the things that we really value for British Columbia.
Could the Greens work with the Conservative Party?
That's a more interesting question, because I think there's a pretty big distance on a lot of key policy issues. I don't think so, but I'm not actually a BC Green. I'm sort of.
Oh, now you tell us.
Well, no. I mean, I'm not on the inside. I'm not on the inside. Let's just say. I'm
all right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I guess by the time we get to, I mean, I really can't imagine anybody getting up right now and saying we're going to wait until morning. I mean, who's going to get any sleep?
Well, I don't know about sleep, but the reality is that out of prudence, I think Elections BC is making sure they've got the numbers right before they make a final determination.
All right. I've got to wrap it now and go back to the desk.
Okay, we've crept up to 92.3% of votes are in, Stephen, and we are seeing John Rustad entering now. So let's take you now live to Conservative Party headquarters. I don't know if I've ever seen him smile that much.
Yeah,
Jason.
definitely showing a lot of teeth right now, you know, and for good reason, of course. John Rustad and the BC Conservatives 4 years ago, only garnering 2% of the entire province's vote share, that totaling 0 votes. And you look at today right now, leading or elected in 45 of them. Of course, John Rustad, a former BC Liberal cabinet minister. He was kicked out of the party by Kevin Falcon, and now is about to make his speech with that 45 number of candidates elected or leading in the province.
Wow, what a night. Thank you guys for being out. How does it feel now to have Conservative Party rocking British Columbia? There's no question this has been a historic night. This has been a night where we have seen the political landscape in British Columbia change forever. And that's all because of you, because of the work that you guys have done and your support. So I just want to start by saying thank you to everybody who's been part of this Conservative Party in British Columbia. When I was first asked to consider taking on the leadership of the Conservative Party, I did question. I said, wait a second here. This party is at 2% in the polls. It hasn't elected anybody in almost 50 years. It hasn't formed a government in almost 100 years. But I looked at it, and in particular, I started going around the province, just jumping in my car, driving around with my chief of staff, and we would go and start meeting with a few people. And we'd have a couple of people in here, maybe 4 people over there, maybe a dozen people in another community. And everywhere we went, we heard the same thing. People were hungry for common sense change in British Columbia. And that momentum kept growing. Every time we went to another location, we came back to the location, we'd have more. We'd have double, triple, quadruple the numbers that would come out. People from all across the province saying, you know what? I actually think we've got a shot to do something here. And that belief kept growing. That belief right around this province kept building to the point today now where we now have the strongest Conservative Party that this province has seen in 100 years. And the beauty of this is a grassroots movement. This is just people, that the salt of the earth, the hardworking, everyday people in this province that have stepped up to the plate and said, yes, we can do things different. We can envision a province that can bring hope and prosperity for people across the province. That is what we've been trying to do as a party. That's what we have brought forward. And that, quite frankly, is why we're seeing us still neck and neck with the NDP. And we have not given up this fight yet. We are going to keep pushing hard. And I believe strongly that this is what happens when you stand on values. This is what happens when you stand on principles. You put it out there, you say, this is their vision. This is what we can do for a province. This is where we can see our youth being able to build a future. And that is where I think we have gotten our strength. And I tell you something, we are so close right now. There is just a couple of seats that are just within 20, 30 votes that could very easily flip for us. There's still votes yet to be counted. And I am optimistic that the people in this province are hungry for that change. And I can tell you something, what we have seen to date, because of the work that we've been doing, because of the pressure that we're putting on this government, think about it. They flipped on the carbon tax. They flipped on decriminalization. They flipped on involuntary care. They flipped on a whole bunch of things because they could see the damage that was being done. But I bet you this, and I'll say this right now, that if we have the unfortunate situation of David Eby being in a minority government, he will not do a single thing that he has promised. And that is something I'm almost guaranteed. And as the Conservative Party of British Columbia, if we're in that situation, we are going to make it as difficult as possible for this NDP to do any more destruction of this province. We are going to continue this fight. We are going to continue this fight over the next days, over the next weeks, over the next months. If we have that honor of forming government, I can tell you something, we still are not going to give up. We're going to fight every single day to try to make sure that we do everything we can to improve the lives of people in this province. People are counting on us. People are counting on the hope, on the opportunity, on the vision of what can be a British Columbia, a prosperous British Columbia, not one, quite frankly, that is in a welfare state that it is today. That is what we are going to continue to fight on as the Conservative Party of British Columbia, certainly now and over the years to come. And I can tell you something else. If we're in that situation of the NDP forming a minority government, we will look at every single opportunity from day one to bring them down at the very first opportunity and get back to the polls. This is too important for the people in this province. It's too important to not give or to give up. It's too important to not keep fighting. People, the one thing I've heard and that really gave me strength throughout this entire campaign is the people coming up and saying that we were giving them hope. We were giving them hope to be able to stay in this province and build a future. And to me, that's what has really struck to my heart. That is what has driven me, and I know that's what's driven our candidates, that hope that we can actually do something big and bright and better in this province. So we're going to continue that, and I want to just say this to all of our candidates who stepped up to the plate and who ran. Thank you. You took a chance on us, you put your name forward, you gave us your time, your energy, and you did us proud right across the province. And we have now elected already the largest number of Conservatives in BC's history. But I tell you something, the candidates didn't do it alone. It was the volunteers that helped to make it work. And everywhere I went around the province connecting with the campaigns, the volunteers came out, they were part of it, they just did an incredible job. And I can't thank the volunteers enough that took part in this campaign. You have really done this proud, you've done our province proud. Most importantly though, you have done this party and you've done our hope, just spreading that hope for people. So thank you so much to our volunteers. I tell you, without it, we would not have been able to do anything that we've done here today. You know, from day one, when I was kicked out of my former party, for daring to stand up for my riding and the values that I believe should be that we should fight for in this province, there's a person who really stood with me and helped me all the way along, and that was my chief of staff, Azim Jawani. He is somebody who has been working behind the scenes tirelessly and has done a tremendous amount. Thank you so much to Azim. And I have to laugh because in August of 2022, after I found myself as an independent, I sat down and Azim said, hey, we've got to meet with Angelo. We've got to meet with Angelo Isadora, who is the one of the well, he was the campaign manager for us in this campaign, but he's one of the executive directors of the Conservative Party. And he said, let's have a conversation with them about what they're doing with the Conservative Party. And that's where I got to really know and understand the work that Angelo had done, along with Connor Gibson, the other executive director. And I tell you something, those guys, along with the team that was part of the Conservative Party, all the volunteers at the time, because we had no money, we had nothing at the time. And so they just did an incredible job building up something that could actually be used in this province. So, you know, taking a party from absolutely nothing with no money and putting us in this situation today has been a remarkable job. And it's the people that were behind it, that working at the party, that just, you know, a huge thank you to them. They have done such a remarkable job to bring life into the Conservative Party of British Columbia. And I could tell you all the stories that went on, but it would take way too long. The stuff that happened behind the scenes as the party grew, all the growing pains and stuff. And it took a very strong president to make sure that to hold the ship going in the right direction, to keep things happening. So, Asia, thank you so much for the work that you did. Tremendous amount of work by your lady. The whole team has been just remarkable to work with, and I want to take a second just to thank the team in my riding, in Chaco Lakes. I only got to spend one day, or even half a day, I should say, during the campaign in my riding, and they fought very hard to make sure that we won that riding. And so I just a huge thank you to Nathan Giddy and the whole team up in the Chaco Lakes for the work that they did. And last, I want to call my wife up here. Kim, come up and join me on the stage. Kim has been an incredible rock for me, supporting me the whole way through. And a matter of fact, I wouldn't be doing this here if Kim hadn't actually talked me into this. She really did an incredible thing. She pushed hard. She said, you know what? If you're not going to stand up and do this, who will? And she pushed hard to say, it's time, we need to do this. We need as a family to do this sacrifice, to do this work. And I'm very proud of Kim and the work that she's done and the support. It's been absolutely incredible. So Kim, I love you, sweetie. Thank you so much for everything. So all I can say is this: we are going to carry on this fight. We are going to fight every single day here. This election is not over. We have an opportunity still to form government in the province of British Columbia and bring common sense change to British Columbia.
Beaming John Rustad, leader of the Conservative Party.
So thank you once again. And I tell you something, I really look forward to the work ahead. We will make sure that the Conservative Party carries forward in this province as the next dynasty to be able to provide good government for British Columbia. And whether we have to wait 4 years to do it, it doesn't matter. We are going to carry on with this fight one way or the other. And my hope is that sometime next week, we're going to be in a different situation. And that's only because of you guys. So let's carry on. Let's carry on with the fight, everyone.
John Rustad with his wife,
Thank you
Kim,
so much.
as well. I think he said it, Jason said it best when he said it's not over yet. It's not over yet. Results are still trickling in. We are hearing from Elections BC. They've communicated with people in charge of the final tabulators. They're confident that those tabulators are doing their due diligence to make sure everything is good before last counts are released. But in the meantime, John Rustad says this is the strongest Conservative Party this province has seen in 100 years.
Certainly a lot of fighting words still for the NDP, describing BC, I believe, as a welfare state, were the term he used to describe the situation. And yes, to your point, saying that whether it is tonight or in 4 years, believes that BC will have a Conservative government. Also talking about his own personal journey once he was kicked out of the BC Liberal caucus by Kevin Falcon, and the decision that needed to be made to run as leader for the BC Conservatives. And if you're watching on our visual platforms, you'll see on the bottom of our screen here, we are waiting for David Eby to enter NDP headquarters. We know he was waiting for John Rustad to finish his speech. So, of course, we will bring that as soon as David Eby enters the NDP headquarters.
Well, and we don't know if we're going to be in a minority situation here. Rustad very much leaving open that possibility. Still a lot of races yet to be decided, but we heard him loud and clear that if he is in that situation with a minority government, that he will do his best to bring down the government.
So we've been telling you that the votes are trickling in, and let me show you an example of that. Of course, all eyes right now on Wanda Fuka-Malahat, where the NDP a minute ago were leading by 26 votes. Well, right now, Gloria, they are leading by 25 votes. So those votes are coming in slowly but surely, and we'll continue to keep our eyes on it. Here you go. You can get an example of this. Dana Le Jeunesse up by, as I say, 25 votes now over the Conservative candidate. And as we alluded to earlier, keep your eye on that green number as well as you think about vote splitting in a riding like this. Let's throw now it to Stephen Quinn and our Political Insiders panel.
Thank you so much, Jason. And Rachel, there was John Rustad for you, and with what sounded very much like a victory speech, although keep on waiting is what he's telling his supporters right now, and great things are going to come.
Well, I mean, come on, 45 seats from nothing. I mean, what's that book, Something Out of Nothing? This really, truly is that story in British Columbia. As John talked about, you know, the party apparatus, the money, the people. He started with nothing. He started with a few guys, and kudos to them on this incredible outcome tonight. But I've known John a long time. He looked super happy, and for good reason. I really think that, 40, if this is how it ends tonight, 45 seats is a huge win for the Conservatives tonight.
Mo?
Oh, I think he was tone deaf. What these results show is that the province is polarized. And I think someone who wants to be a premier in waiting should be talking about the need to collaborate, to work across party lines.
Didn't
to
hear a lot of that
cooperate,
from David Eby during the
Well,
campaign.
I think, well, look, you're going to start hearing it tonight, I bet you, for sure.
Will we?
Because that is what you would expect. We're a highly polarized province, and we're pitting one against the other. And I think there's a role for someone to say, now look, we take this result as it is. We're going to have to work together across party lines to bring some stability and some proper leadership and make some progress in this province.
But isn't politics about competing visions?
It is.
I mean,
It is. But when
when
the verdict is in, and this kind of result is produced, I think it calls for collaboration.
All right, Pete, your thoughts?
Well, I am struck by the fact if we had seen that kind of animation from John Rustad in the debate, we might have a very different outcome today, because I think that we saw a different John Rustad than what we saw in the debate, which was flat and uninspiring. And here was clearly a happy, kind of more gregarious kind of character. And I think that is an interesting takeaway. I also think that, I think Jason was sort of mentioning the green vote split kind of thing.
Yes.
I think that's a dangerous narrative to necessarily pursue. And I would love to get into that, but you are nodding like you're going to.
Oh, no.
Oh.
I know. When he and this is when Jason said that, you said split. I looked at
you saw me cringe,
yes,
right? Yeah.
I
because
saw that.
I think that there's a larger narrative at play, and I think honestly the surge in the Conservative vote had nothing to do with the Greens. That was a growth in their own vote. In fact, we saw the collapse of a lot of Green votes, and I think a lot of Greens did subscribe to the narrative that there was a danger of vote split and moved over to the NDP. Similarly, we saw federal Liberals sending their people over to vote for the NDP. In spite of all that, I think what we've seen is a big surge in these Conservative values. And Mo's exactly right that it does demonstrate a real rift. I mean, just look at the south of the Fraser, north of the Fraser. There's a real rift there, and there's I think a lot of healing that's going to have to come out of this and figure out how we can come together as a province and unite behind what it is that's dividing us.
And Rachel, Mo talks about polarization, and when you hear John Rustad talk about, unfortunately, if the NDP form government, we're going to make it impossible for the NDP to continue to do the damage they've done. But what does that tell us about how much is going to get done in the legislature in the next 4 years?
Well, John Rustad has sat in the legislature for a long time. He sat across from David Eby for many, many years. And so I think John will go in there with a new mandate for those conservative values, those policies that they've put out. And I know that he will try and move them forward, and that they're right. That does mean cooperation and working together in some circumstances.
We're going to wrap it because we have David Eby coming to the podium now, and I'll throw it back to the desk.
Stephen, thank you very much. Yes, indeed, David Eby just entering the room, hugging supporters, waving at supporters. This is at, of course, the NDP headquarters in downtown Vancouver tonight. Gloria, you have to wonder what's going through his mind, of course. The NDP in the last Legislative Assembly going from a majority government. We're not yet able to say whether we will see a majority or minority situation, but we did hear from Shachi Kurl earlier today saying no matter how you split things here, this was not a successful night so far for the NDP and for David Eby.
This could still go either way with the races that are outstanding. And again, Shachi was talking about David Eby being out of touch with the issues that really mattered to British Columbians right now. I'm just looking at his face. I don't know how you would interpret that. A little bit resignation there. I mean, it certainly isn't beaming like we just saw John Rustad, of course. This has got to be a disappointing evening at this point. Again, not all is said and done, and things could change as those votes keep trickling in. What are we at right now? We're at 93.7% of votes in.
Let's listen in to David Eby.
Thank you, friends. So good to see you. It's been a night, hey? Been a night. It's so good to be with you here on the territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. This has been a very, very hard-fought campaign, and we knew that every vote would matter, and that has certainly been the case. And it looks like we're going to have to wait just a little bit longer. Now, we don't know what the final count's going to be in the province, but what we do know is that there was a clear majority for the progressive values that are and I take a lot of comfort from that. There was also another message in this narrowest of margins. That's we got to do better. And that was our commitment to British Columbians. We got to do better, and we will do better. We will do better. We'll support people at the cost of daily life. We'll support them with affordable housing and better health care and a strong and prosperous economy and safe communities. We're going to do that work. Let me tell you, I know that you deserve, that British Columbians deserve, that our whole province deserves a premier that's going to bring us together, not drive us apart. And I promise to be that premier, to bring British Columbians together. Because despite all of our differences in this amazing place we call home, we have so many shared values. We love this amazing place, British Columbia. I need to thank, just looking out in this room, I see people who put so much effort in. You worked so hard. You are the smallest selection of the team that ran this campaign. And I am so grateful to all of you. It was incredible. The campaign team led by Marie Delamatia, thank you. You're awesome. To every candidate that put their name forward for election, almost every candidate. I'm going to leave one off my thank you list. But to almost every candidate that put their name forward for election, thank you for putting your name forward from all the parties. And when you put your name forward for election, you're putting forward a vision for the province, and you're putting yourself out there. And it's a time when you and your families and others may be targeted on social media. And I want to say thank you for putting your name forward to make our province a better place, even if you're in with no. Now, we disagree on many things, John Rustad and I, there's no question. But I will absolutely acknowledge that he spoke to the frustrations of a lot of British Columbians. Frustrations about the cost of daily life, frustrations about crime and public safety, and we can agree on these things. We need to support people with the costs of daily life. We need to make life more affordable for British Columbians. And we need to make communities safe for everybody. And we will do these things. And I also tonight spoke with Sonia Furstenau. And I congratulated her on running a strong campaign, on her contributions to this province in the 2017 Parliament. And since then, she ran a strong and principled campaign, and I'm grateful for that. And there are many values that we share in common with the Green Party. And I am committed to working with them on our common and shared values. There's a specific group of people, though, that I really need to thank and appreciate here tonight. And that is, of course, my family. Nothing's impossible, absolutely. My beautiful and amazing wife, Dr. Kaylee Lynch. I tell you, I wouldn't be up here without Kaylee. Every single day she makes this possible. It is a shared project we are doing together. And Kaylee, I love you so much. Thank you for everything. To our amazing kids, they were so excited. They were so dressed up. They were in their best clothes. Ezra was like, Dad, why did we get dressed up? They wanted to be here with you. They are sound asleep. To Ezra and Iva and baby Gwen, we're doing this for you and for all of your friends, all of the children of the province. We're doing this for a strong future for our province. And I know that a lot of British Columbians, they work away from their kids and they have to be away from home. And I feel that too. You know, every time I'm away from you, I miss you so much. And I know you're giving something up so that other kids can have more too. And I'm so appreciative of the sacrifice that you're making unknowingly. And I love you so much. So, oh, thanks. So the campaign is over, but the work has just begun, hasn't it? I recommit myself. I know we all recommit ourselves to working for British Columbians every single day. That will be our sole focus, is getting things done for British Columbians who are struggling out there, making sure they have, making sure that this is a province where you don't just get by, where you get ahead, where you can find a good home for yourself and your family, where you can get a job that pays you a wage, that helps you support the people that you love in strong and safe communities with a strong economy, leading the way, not just in Canada, but in North America, to a clean economy, ensuring that we're doing it in partnership with Indigenous people. We're fighting hate and racism and division and conspiracy. We're gonna do it together. Thank you, my friends. We couldn't have done it without you, and it's not even done. So let's keep fighting for people. That's all we're gonna do. Here we go.
David Eby thanking supporters, starting out, Jason, by saying it's been a night. It's been a night. But interesting messages as well that he's delivering. We've got to do better. There's some humility there for sure. But all these messages as well of shared values, of working together as well. And again, we do not know what that final makeup of the legislature is going to be just yet. But we do have some interesting information to share with you. So let's look at NDP fortunes on a little bit more of a focus scale.
We've got, as we've been talking about, we have riding results that have changed over the last few minutes as well that have allowed us to make certain projections. Of course, as you're seeing right now, we still cannot project what the government situation will look like, who will form government, majority versus minority, but there have been numerous races, of course, throughout this night that have been too close for us to call. And trickling, though they may have, the votes are coming in, which have allowed us to have a look at some of these projections now that we can bring to you.
There are 5 ridings right now with less than 200 votes separating the final results. And there are, right, you've been watching one. Why didn't you bring us the latest?
Wanda Fuka-Malahad, it is really one of the ridings where we've just all been watching so closely. Right now, the NDP candidate up by 25 votes over the Conservative candidate there. Surrey City Centre also tremendously close. The NDP candidate there leading by only 41 votes. And how about Surrey Guildford, where the Conservative candidate leading by just over 100 votes. So clearly such close races. We can finally show you them now. Vancouver, Yaletown, we can now project elect Terry Young, defeating the Conservative candidate here, Melissa DeGenova. This one came down quite to the wire. There's still one poll to come, but we can now project elect Terry Young for the NDP in Vancouver, Yaletown.
In Columbia River Revelstoke as well, Scott McGuinness is projected elected as well. The Conservative there leading Andrea Dunlop of the NDP by more than a 700 vote margin at this stage. Again, 26 out of 27 polls. We keep talking about that one outstanding poll.
Another Surrey battleground riding. This is Surrey Fleetwood, where Jagrup Brar is now projected elected. Again, such a close race, just beating out Avtar Gill of the Conservatives. So there is another projected elected result.
No, it's true. And for a closer look at other results around the province, over to Dan Burrett and Michelle Elliott. What have you got for us?
Fraser Valley Blues sounds like a football movie. And that is where they picked up a lot of seats. My buddies watching in our football pool will appreciate that one. Look how they did. Conservatives at 53.1%, the NDP at 42.4%. Keeping in mind that this is traditionally right of center territory. This is where BC Liberals ruled for a long time, for decades, and then the Socreds after that. Look at the vote change, the seat change. Conservatives up 9 and NDP down 7. Let's go to some ridings now. See what we've got here. Coming up, 3, 2, 1.
And
Langley Abbotsford. Harman Bangdu wins by 56, or projected elected 5,600 votes over John Eldag, the former Liberal MP who was there. 21 of 23 polls reporting. Let's do to another one. Chilliwack North, Heather Maws, 3,700 vote victory over the incumbent Dan Coulter. Also, Abbotsford Mission, Rianne Gasper, Realtor, wins by 2,600 votes over the incumbent Agriculture Minister Pam Alexis. Chilliwack Cultus Lake, Alia Warbus, 2,400 vote victory over the incumbent Kelly Padden. And one more, Langley Walnut Grove, Misty Van Popta, 1,200 votes over the incumbent Megan Dykeman.
And more in this area as well. The Conservative candidate in Langley Willowbrook, Jody Tour, is leading right now by 961 votes over the NDP incumbent Andrew Mercier. In Maple Ridge East, the Conservative candidate Lawrence Mock leading by 324 votes over the incumbent there by the NDP Bob Deeth. And in Abbotsford South, Conservative candidate Bruce Banman projected elected in Abbotsford South. And two more here for you. Conservative candidate for Abbotsford West, Corky Neufeld, is projected elected for that riding. And one more. This one is a different one in terms of the party. Maple Ridge Pitt Meadows, the NDP incumbent there, Lisa Bear, is projected elected.
Michelle, Dan, thank you very much. And it's an indication that we have a lot of question marks outstanding in terms of just how the final results are going to go. And it could be some time, Jason.
Gloria, I can tell you right now, we might not get answers to some of those questions for quite some time. So we told you about Wanda Fuca Malahat, the closest race so far, where the NDP candidate is currently leading, as you can see there, by 25 votes. Here is what we are hearing from Elections BC. They are right now counting both the out of district votes, which we might still get a final result on tonight. But here's the key. Mail-in ballots here, which clearly can tip the race one way or the other, will not be finalized until October 26th.
Oh my, I hope Shachi's got lots of snacks.
Yeah, so we might not know final results. In fact, we can tell you we won't know final results tonight until October 26th, because clearly the closest riding of the night, those mail-in ballots could make all the difference, and we won't know until October 26th.
No, it's so true. So let's get more reaction. Mira Baines is live at Conservative headquarters tonight. Mira?
Well, Gloria, the party is still going here, and we heard from John Rustad, and he gave a speech, and it wasn't a concession speech. It was almost like a victory speech. He says that this is the strongest Conservative party in 100 years. That was the last time the Conservatives formed government, back in 1928. And we talked about the momentum, how we traveled around the province, and people really wanted this common sense change. And although the party lacked the money, they lacked the campaign infrastructure.